scheduled live streams, but this one is unique in the history of all of our semi regularly unscheduled live streams in that we have a guest. I don't think we've ever done a live stream with well, except when Jeff used to hang out. This is I know him as Kate. Well, we all know him as Canadian Arctic Radio. Do you mind using your first name, or what do you want to go by?
Yeah, absolutely. You just call me Pete. Um, that's how I go. Whenever I do a stream with somebody, just I just use my first name. So
Okay, I'm trying to see if I can get the chat up, but I'm not finding the chat.
I can see it.
Oh, there we go. We got one whole viewer at the moment. So
Hey, Mark.
we're okay. Ah, Mark is here. Good evening, patriotic Americans. Mark, you are currently not outnumbered. There are at the moment more Catholics than Protestants in this live stream.
We'll see
Actually,
how
we have
long that lasts.
Okay, so originally we had thought about doing this live stream because Pete is a dedicated Catholic and I am a dedicated Protestant, and we thought that might be fun. However, neither one of us really prepared for that conversation, so we're just gonna have a talk. And I know the first thing I want to talk about is, will our Alberta be the 51st state? Because
you know,
that excites me to no end.
yeah, there's a lot of people here that are excited about that too. Will it happen? I don't know.
What
Uh,
uh what are the politics of that
so
for you guys
Alberta,
on your side?
well, Alberta is like the powerhouse of Canada as far as energy.
Hmm.
So we're kind of like Texas. We
Hmm.
have cattle, we have oil, we have trucks, we have guns. We're like that part of Canada. And so for decades now, the Canadian government implements what's called an equalization program, which means that the provinces that generate income support the provinces that don't. Over the course of the last 50 or so years, we're in the hole about $1 trillion, or maybe a little less than that, just from sending money out of this province to fund, Quebec or Ontario or whatever. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is that Alberta is the only province in Canada that has a population pyramid that's actually facing the right way. Whereas the old at the top are the numerically the least, and then it gets bigger as it goes down the generation. Whereas the rest of Canada is inverted. So they're bringing in tons of immigrants to try and stem that problem.
So
The thing is,
I
we
mean,
don't really want them.
right, the joke. I mean, it was a great joke, but when Trump was doing all this, Canada's going to be the 51st state. Oh, Trudeau's going to be a great governor, and there
Yeah,
was this, and it was a funny troll. I don't care who you are, you had to. It was pretty funny,
yeah.
but like, yeah, if you were just out there talking to the average Albertan, would that just sort of inflame a sense of nationalism or patriotism, or is it, hey, I could see what would be the reaction to the average Albertan if you said, hey, you guys want to be a part of the you guys want to be the 51st state, what is there? I like
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know the percentage of people that would want to be part of the states, but the independence movement on its own is probably around 50% in this province. So that being that either we would become a 51st state or we would become an independent country.
Mhm.
So that's kind of on the table. So there's going to be a referendum next year where we're asked if we want to be part of Canada anymore, and that's kind of going to be I guess, the line in the sand where people are going to vote yes or no on it. So,
So that's
but it is a
scheduled.
big.
There's a vote scheduled, like a referendum, basically scheduled.
Well, it's not scheduled, but it will be in 2026. That's all we know so far.
Oh, but it is a
So it doesn't
definite
have.
thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it
So
just doesn't
what?
have a specific date. Yeah.
So what? And I know I'm asking. You're just like me. You're just a good old boy out in your front porch,
Yeah.
running your mouth on a Saturday night. But you said, like, so there's an independence movement. Is there a split where someone would say, or a segment of the population where someone would say, "Oh, we don't want to be independent, but we want to be the 51st state," or is independence the totality? When you said there's 50% for independence, is that the totality of both movements?
That's the totality of both. So
Okay.
there is some people that would like to join the states, and myself, I'm neither here nor there with it. Whatever comes comes. I just don't want to be part of this country anymore.
Right. Well, to me, I mean, I obviously it's a huge swath of territory, an immensely rich swath of territory, uh, with a frontier. Well, is Alberta still frontier, or is there still frontier areas? My vision of Canada is probably very, very, very American, and I think all trees, all bears, all moose. Uh, but
Well, where I live, you would be absolutely correct.
okay, yeah,
uh,
one of the fantasies I have about the whole thing is like I said, just a new a frontier again. I feel like Canada is still a frontier territory in some ways, and I would
in a
love
lot
to.
of ways,
Uh,
I mean, like I'd say the bulk of the population lives along the border. Um, that's where a lot of the big cities are. But as you start moving farther and farther north, and the population kind of starts to disperse a little bit, and we start kind of getting into that territory that you're talking about.
mhm.
Not exactly, but you know what I mean. We're chopping firewood, we're shooting bears, and we're doing all that stuff, but in a more modern way, I guess. Yeah.
uh, I haven't had my first fire inside yet this year. We're waiting to see what they will, because we just heat with wood. We don't have any other heat. But I mean, this is freaking, the southeastern United States. It's Georgia, for crying out loud. How much heat do you actually need? But I've got a lot of my wood chopped for the year already, and this could be the year. This could finally be the year where I get a year's ahead and I start cutting next year's wood this year. Uh, okay, so
That
Patrick
never.
E wants to know where you are located within a reasonable. Yeah, obviously we're not going to give your address, but Albert, you're in Alberta, right?
I'm in Alberta. I'm in a small town. Outside of a small town called Rocky Mountain House.
Oh.
We're about an hour from the mountains, and we're right off the beaten path. So it's very country out here.
So, like, how far would that be from the American border? Just to give a
Oh, I would say about 200 miles,
200 miles, so not that
250
far,
miles.
not that far.
Not that far, no.
Now, and what's the province just right next to Alberta that's also talking about independence a little bit?
That would be Saskatchewan,
Saskatchewan.
and they're yeah. Go
How
ahead.
how serious are they about it? Are they as far down the process as like Alberta is, or are they just now starting to talk about it?
No, they've been talking about it. Well, they haven't been talking about it as long as we have, but they have been talking about it for quite a long time, and they are also doing a referendum, I believe, next year. I could be wrong on that, but I thought I heard talk of that as well. Yeah.
And is that just a very similar situation to you guys there in Alberta? Is it pretty much a similar split, similar reasoning?
Similar, and there's more of push in Saskatchewan to join Alberta and Saskatchewan together into one country. Um, I think that's what they're kind of hoping for, that we would take them with them, and I think that might happen if
Uh,
we have. Yeah, I
so
don't think they can
that's
do it
a
on their.
decent chunk of territory right there, right? I mean, that's not a small landmass when you're talking about Alberta. I was just looking at the map today, just sort of thinking about this, and that's not a insignificant chunk of territory by any stretch. Yeah, it would be bigger than most countries in the world, I think. Uh,
Yeah, I think England can fit into Alberta 4.5 times or something like that. So
what can?
England,
Oh, England, yeah,
Great Britain.
yeah. England's a small country. They're it's the landmass of Alabama, which obviously that that has more context for me than you. But uh, Aiden told me that when he was visiting. Yeah, England is about the size of Alabama, but has 70 million people. Alabama is a little bit smaller than Georgia. I can't remember. Georgia might be 8 million acres. Oh, I feel like I'm going to screw these numbers up, so there's no point in me even speculating. But yeah, Alabama's not a very big, one of the bigger states. So yeah, if you think about Saskatchewan being 4 times the size of Alabama, now you're starting to talk about a serious landmass. Well, I guess what I'm
Yeah,
saying yeah, Alabama is about the same size as England, about the size of a country, and now you're 4 times the size of that. And then
yeah, something
how
like
big is Alberta?
um, Alberta is a little bit bigger. Actually, I don't know. Alberta, Saskatchewan is kind of a rectangle,
Mhm.
so it's kind of hard to tell. And Alberta's, I think, a little bit bigger, but I'm not sure. Again,
Either
I don't
way,
want to
so
say.
you're basically like 8 times the size of England. I think you're starting to be a landmass the size of France or Germany, maybe even.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
easily. I'm sure you could take North Dakota and South Dakota and Montana and times it by two and put it in both of our provinces.
hmm.
I think that would be about a fair assumption. I think.
And then all the oil, you guys got oil, natural gas, uh, and then is that gold country or not?
Not so much. No, Gold Country be more on the west coast on British Columbia or on the Canadian Shield, which would be like Quebec or Ontario. That's where all
Uh,
the heavy mining is. We're in the north, like in the territories. There's a lot of gold mining up there.
gotcha.
So like,
Uh,
basically parallel with Alaska kind of
oh,
territory.
Patrick E gives us a Patrick E says that Texas, the state of Texas, is about 5% larger than Alberta. So Alberta
There
is
you go.
almost the size of Texas, and then Saskatchewan would be about that again. Uh,
About that again.
so that is a very, very, very big chunk of dirt.
It's a very and it's got a lot of oil.
A
we
lot
and
of
we want
oil.
to give you guys all of our oil. We want you guys to buy it all. Not we
Yeah,
don't
that
want it. Well,
what that Keystone pipeline was one of the greatest just boneheaded moves in the history of the world. I
I
to
know
this day I can't wrap my mind around why anyone would not want to buy oil from their neighbor instead of across the ocean, and
exactly.
why wouldn't we want to ship it to our refineries too? That was the other part I didn't. I mean, this was just win 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 all the way around
Yep.
for everybody. Nobody loses, and they just
Except for
shot
the
it in the
Indians.
head. Well, I will be very, very, very honest with you, Pete. I would thrill, and not just because it's like a nationalist troll, oh, rah, rah, America. I would absolutely thrill to have Alberta and Saskatchewan in the States. Uh, that would be great for my country. I can't know what it would be for your country, but it would be great for my country. The only
Oh, it would be
thing, what's
it would
that?
be horrible for the rest of Canada. They would die.
Yeah,
Like it would. I think Quebec would separate, and Canada would just fall into a bunch of small, balkanized. I don't know what who they'd be controlled by.
yeah.
Um, because we would also cut off our westernmost province from the rest of Canada as well. So it would be an interesting, definitely would be interesting. That's for sure.
I almost wonder if it doesn't force. Like this has happened before. I mean, this is exactly what happened with Texas. Yeah, it was the same. Obviously, a long time ago in a lot different situation, but it was the same basic mechanisms. Texas was a part of Mexico. Texas left Mexico, and then within about 10 years joined America, the rest of the states. So it's not unprecedented. The difference there is like geographically it worked, you know. Texas was the border between Mexico and the United States. It was either going to be one or the other, and it didn't cut anything off from the other, you know. Whereas, you know, like you said, the whole west coast of Canada over there suddenly doesn't. How does it communicate with the east coast of Canada? Yeah, how do you have a coherent country without a coherent landmass? Now, I guess there's territory around the top that would connect, huh?
Yeah, except they would have to go through Alaska to get to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
Uh,
you might have to look on a map and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that British Columbia, the entire north of it is. I could be wrong. There could be a bit of Yukon there, but I think it's mostly Alaska.
oh, if I remember correctly, Patrick is Canadian too.
Yay! But well, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that Quebec has been toying with separatism a lot longer than Alberta has. There was a referendum in Quebec in the '90s that was pretty. Yeah, so I think they have that kind of spirit over there too. So we are probably egging each other on.
For our more American viewers, Quebec is very, very French. They speak French, and they're constantly threatening to leave. There's all these laws in Quebec about how you can't have English language signs on the streets, and obviously, I've never been there. I'm just talking about stuff I have
Yeah,
read and heard, but
I've never
it
been.
all sounds very French to me.
Yeah, I'm definitely. It's not my culture. I'm a redheaded Italian, so.
A red-headed Italian. How did that happen?
Well, I don't know. I guess somewhere along the lines in the background there had to have been a redhead. I guess.
It had to have been. So the Normans invaded Italy for a while. Northern Italy and southern Italy had a lot of influence from the Normans. So maybe
That's right.
maybe you got a little Viking in there somewhere.
Probably because my dad is from a province in Italy called Lombardy,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, the
basically
Lombards.
the Lombards. Yeah, so we're kind of descended from the Lombards. So I guess we would be that, and that's probably where the red hair comes from too, and the blue eyes.
Yeah,
So
most likely. So Mark Becker wants to know, how does the average Canadian feel? And I guess that's probably a little unfair question since you're not probably not an average Canadian. Uh, but do you have any sense what the average Canadian thinks about this separation stuff?
yeah, there was a poll about this maybe a month ago, and I think 30% of the country understood why we wanted to. It wasn't like a direct poll where they were saying, "Do you think Alberta should leave?" It was like, How do you feel about it?" And 30% of Canadians across the board understood why we wanted to.
Of course, that feels like a very Canadian thing. You know, oh yeah, no, yeah, all polite, nice. Yeah, we understand. Again, it might be just a silly stereotype, but
Yeah,
uh,
it depends. I mean, we are sometimes, and then when you get us riled up, we'll jump in our trucks and
yeah,
besiege our people. So,
yeah. Mark says that if he was a young man, he would move. I'm assuming he's talking about like to Alberta if it's seceded and joined the states that he would consider moving to Alberta. I would. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I've got a lot of roots here. I've got grandchildren, and now my second son just got engaged to a young woman,
yeah,
and there'll be more grandchildren. So I don't know. I might be past that stage where I'm picking up roots and moving. But you know, the idea just appeals to me
Yeah,
to
it's kind
no
of
end. You
romantic.
know.
But I get it. Like I'm at that point too. I got kids getting married and grandkids popping out of the woodwork now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to go anywhere yet. Although I am planning a continental road trip at some point, but
Yeah. Where are you going?
all around, everywhere I can
Everywhere
drive. Yeah, except for Canada.
except for Canada. All
Going
right.
south.
Well, if you want to see the southeast, let me know. We'll definitely would love to
Yeah, it
host
might
you.
be 10 years.
We
Might
we
be 10 years before I'm ready for that, but yeah.
we live in a pretty unique area. I've done a little bit of traveling. I've never been to Canada, but I've seen a fair amount of this country, a little bit of South America, North Africa, Europe, yeah, Caribbean, the Caribbean, and now I was raised here, born here, so obviously I'm a little prejudiced. But the Southeast is a really, really, really unique part of the world, especially where we live up here in the Appalachians. We live right at right where Appalachia starts, man. I'm like right there on the line. I can probably
And the
see,
food.
non-Appalachia from the front porch. Uh, but fun area. Yeah, we're up in these mountains, but we're still in the warm, deep south, and it is a very unique culture here with some incredibly unique terrain. Uh,
I'll bet, and I'd like to see it sometime. I'd like to be warm too. That'd be nice.
well, depending on when you come, I can absolutely provide you that. That's no, you will not. Oh, I mean, I was born and raised here, and sometimes in the height of the summer, I'm just like, oh, this is this is it might be too much, and we don't have air conditioning. We don't have air conditioning in the house, uh, so I'm pretty acclimatized to the heat and the humidity, and even sometimes I just like, no, this is awful. This is not human.
I
But
know we get like really hot days in the summer too, and it's like I'm so glad we don't live in Arizona or something like that. And
yeah,
it was just, I mean, the hot for us is like 30 degrees Celsius, which is what in American, like
yeah, you have
maybe
to give up
80s.
that Celsius stuff if you want to come be part of us, brother. I'm sorry.
We're stuck in between the metric system and the imperial system up here. It's crazy. Distances are measured in kilometers unless it's on a tape measure, and then it's measured in inches. I
That's
don't get it.
interesting. I wonder why.
I don't know. I don't know.
The whole metric system was now here. I'm going to show my American. The whole metric system is just to me insane. I mean, it's just the dumbest thing ever. It was this. Yeah, the whole history of it is in the French Revolution.
Hmm.
uh they decided that they were all rationalists and they were all scientists and everything was going to have to be you know
Yep.
and
The
so
Age of Enlightenment.
they tried to make the year be a 10 month calendar year. They tried to make everything divisible by 10. It wasn't
Hmm.
just like the metric system, it was everything. They tried to turn the weeks into 10-day weeks, all this stuff that they just wanted it all divisible by 10. And uh, and most of it fell apart at the end of the revolution. But for some reason, that metric system stayed, and it's just stupid. None of the actual measurements are are in quantities that make sense for people's lives. Oh,
I
Mark,
know, and it,
Mark, that the metric system is not more logical. Here's how illogical the metric system is. Allegedly, the meter is based off of how the distance. Anyway, you're supposed to be able to always figure out what a meter is again because you just got to measure this certain distance of the earth and then hack it into. They measured wrong. The meter's not even the meter. It's off by some stupid amount. I can't remember what it was. uh,
yeah.
So, so the metric system is just completely random. The
It can
imperial
be.
system is more logical. I'm off on a tangent. I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'll come back to reality here in just a minute.
No worries.
The imperial system is more logical because it measures things that people use in the quantities that people use them. Like a gallon is a an amount of a liquid that was useful to people's lives. Uh, a foot was a distance that was relevant to to what people had to do. Uh, so
Hmm.
no, I think the imperial system is far more logical than the metric, which is totally arbitrary and is based off of false measurements to begin with. And you will never, ever, ever, ever convince me that a French rationalist from the 18th century knew what the hell he was doing. These are some
Probably
of the
not. No.
dumbest people in the history of the world. Uh,
Wasn't it? Was it Descartes that was the one that did the metric system?
I don't
Uh,
remember all that.
I remember something because I used to have a job where I used to be a mapping analyst,
Oh,
and I had to figure out things. I worked for a county at one time, and I had to figure out how much time was spent on these graders that were grading the roads based on their GPS. And when I plugged the calculations in from the server, everything was in decimals. And I'm like, well, how can you figure out time in decimals? So I started looking up decimal time, and it came from the French Revolution. And I was just like, this
really?
is the dumbest thing ever. Like, it's retarded, you know? I never could
There,
figure out how to connect.
yeah, I'm not familiar with decimal time. You just told me something I'm not familiar with, but I go through these phases where I get hyper focused on one topic, and and for a very very long time that topic was the French Revolution. Just fascinated me, and
Yeah.
so I was just reading a ton of stuff about that, consuming a lot of podcasts and everything, and that's where I heard about the origins of the metric system. I didn't know about it other than its connection to the French Revolution. Uh,
When somebody asks me how tall I am, I tell them I'm, 5'10", and but you look on my driver's license and it says 175 centimeters. I have no reference. When the cops say how tall are you, they're expecting centimeters, and I'm like, well, I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. I don't. I could. Yeah, if you asked me to just guess what I was in centimeters, I would just be like, arrest me. I'm sorry. I don't know.
200.
You're just gonna have to take me in, officer. I don't know. Uh, I guess I know that a foot is around what 31 centimeters or 30 centimeters.
I to boy, I don't know. I should know this stuff. I'm out of practice now, so
Yeah, I think that's what I remember from my little ruler in school was that like 12 inch. The ruler would have 12 inches on one side, and it would have I don't think it was 31, but the
two and a
31
half
went.
centimeters,
What's that?
2.5 centimeters in an inch. So that would be 24 and 30. Yeah,
30.
30 centimeters would be.
I can do kilometers up pretty okay just from having been in the Marines. Because all of our land navigation was done in meters, and our range estimation, and all of our maps and everything were in meters, so or kilometers. Uh, and when we would do at land nav, when we would do land nav, or if we were calling for fire or something, we would use. I think we would get down to 10 meters would be as close as we would get. So I know a kilometer is 6/10 of a mile. So there we go. The French rationalists got to me. I've bought into the propaganda. Okay,
Yeah,
I
the
have
un.
another French specific question. Uh, what
Mm.
exactly guns can you own? Because I cannot figure out what the hell the logic is to the French gun laws. French
Oh, the
Canadian. I'm sorry.
Canadian gun laws. Technically, I can own whatever I want, but I just can't tell anybody. I'd have to have it buried out somewhere out back. But so it keeps changing in Canada because they keep adding guns to this gun registry we have up here that the government deems to be, I don't know, black, like black guns, or they've got long magazines or whatever kind of thing, and they look threatening. So they keep putting them on the list. So basically, you can have semi-automatic with no more than 5 rounds in the magazine, and unless it's a 22, in which you can have unlimited rounds.
Really?
Yeah, and you can't have an automatic weapon at all. And handguns, you have to have a special permit for those, and it's so dumb. It's like, if you want to take this, the only place you can use a handgun is at the range. So I can't pack one with me in the bush. Well, I will anyways, but you can't. And when you're on your way to the range, you have to let them know you're coming. You can't stop anywhere for a piss or anything like that. It has to be straight there and then straight back again. And then you have to have everything locked up a certain way in your house. And
Mm.
like, literally, if an invader came into my house and all I had was a handgun, it would take me probably 10 minutes to unlock everything, take the trigger locks off, take your magazine from a separate locked container that can't be loaded. You have to load the rounds into the magazine. Then it's just dumb. Like, it's
Mm.
absolutely stupid. So we're starting to have some pushback up here now with something called a castle law. Um, we don't have one currently, but several provinces are starting to push the federal government to allow a castle law. So basically,
Oh.
if somebody comes in my house and I kill them, well, I mean, if they invade my house and I
Right.
kill them, it's not
You
on
can't
me.
invite them to dinner and kill them.
No, no. I could,
But so
but
Patrick
I
says handguns can no longer be bought in Canada at all. Can't even sell a used one. So if you don't have a handgun as of this moment, you couldn't get one. Is what is if I'm understanding them correctly.
Okay, well, I never heard that. My brother-in-law's a gunsmith. I'll have to talk to him, I guess. Um, but he'd still get me handguns, anyways. I mean, that's what I heard.
Potentially, I mean, in a science fiction story I read one time, I could get a handgun. I can
Exactly.
never, I just again, my silly stereotype of Canada, but I'm thinking, man, there's grizzly bears and mountain lions, and I mean,
Exactly.
if anyone needs a gun, it's you guys.
Right? I mean, I don't do. I mean, I started my own firewood business 2 or 3 years ago. I quit my office job, and I have to carry a rifle with me everywhere when I'm in the bush because you never know. There's a mountain lion sometimes,
Mhm.
or a grizz, or a black bear, or anything. Even a honey badger, I wouldn't want to
Yeah, no, seriously,
tussle
yeah.
with. But to have a handgun would be so much more convenient.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I can get one of those Taurus judges. I might be able to do something like that because it's a shotgun technically, but
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
So like you could have like
It,
a lever action type rifle.
yep,
You can do like a lever action. And is that would
yep.
that magazine be capped? Like my lever action will take 10 rounds of 38. Was that capped to the 5 round capacity, or because it's not a
Yeah, so
semi-automatic?
it would just have like a plug in it somewhere, so you just could only load 5 rounds
Oh,
in, but you could take it out. Right. The same as, like, I got an SKS. It's got a 10 round mag on it, but
mhm.
there's a bolt welded to the bottom of the spring, so it only goes down enough to hold 5. But if I
Right.
cut that off, I could push it in. Yeah, we know
Yeah.
all the tricks.
That. Oh, so there's a 5 round capacity for all rifles. It doesn't matter what type of rifle it
Yeah,
is. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. Uh, Patrick is saying something here. He says, "I bought 4 in Prevision I bet that's a typo. The one you have are the ones you can keep if you have a license, like me. So if you already,
Yep.
hey, if you already had I think prevision was supposed to be previously. He had bought 4 pistols previously, and he can keep them because he's got a license.
Their grandfathered in or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I you know that that's so funny to me that like the SKS is allowed because like the SKS is a functional semi-automatic rifle. You know,
Hmm.
it's semi-tactical, and it shoots a tactically proficient round. I mean, I hate everything commie, no matter what it is. But like the SK, you know how to do those conversions where they take the AK mags. Of course, I'm sure you guys probably can't get a hold of AK mags. Uh,
Well, we can.
oh, you can get
We
the
can
mag.
do because they're pinned at 5 rounds. You can get the full 30 round magazine, but they got a pin in them to stop putting more
Right.
than 5 rounds in. So you grind the pin out, and then you're good.
Right. See,
So
if
yeah,
you have an
with
SKS and
with the
access
wheels,
to now, I don't know. I've never obviously I'm not a gunsmith. I don't know how to do the conversion, but what I've been told is that that conversion to make the SKS, accept the AK mags is not insanely difficult. Uh, of course, if you don't do it right, it's not like a great functioning firearm or anything, but it's still a 30 round
exactly.
magazine with a uh, uh, oh gosh, what do they call that? Uh, well, anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. It just shocks me that for everything that's not allowed, the SKS is allowed.
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah. It's a wonderful little rifle. I like it. Um, it's a good, really great all-purpose tool. I never really think of it in terms of combat, but I suppose it would be. It's not going to get hung up on things when you're running through the bush, or
I
I don't
mean,
know.
the
I don't
the
know anything about
Chinese didn't
combat.
give up on the Chinese love the SKS, and they wouldn't
Mhm.
give up on it until I believe the early '80s. They finally upgraded to something different. It might have been the mid '70s, but it was very 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 late. When everyone else had moved on, and even the Soviets had they had quit using it in the '50s as a frontline rifle. They never really used it as they never. The idea was always that the SKS was going to be their battle rifle, and the AK-47 was going to be their submachine gun. But then they realized, you know, accidentally that they had accidentally stumbled upon a really good, battle rifle in the AK-47, and so they never really used the SKS for what its intended role. It was just a stopgap while they got the AK-47 spun up because there were some problems with the manufacturing. Uh, but the Chinese hung on to it. Well, I believe it was into the '80s when they were still using it in their frontline infantry units. And they fought a bunch of wars with it in Vietnam and some others. I don't remember all of them, but yeah, no, it's an effective. Yeah, I would say it's the bare minimum effective tactical rifle. Like by this much, but I would absolutely say it's still. I mean, obviously, it's still deadly, right? So it
Oh
just
yeah.
it just shocks me that one's still available to you guys, but you got to pin your lever action at 5 rounds.
Right.
And
You can have unlimited rounds in a 22 though.
right,
So you can have 300 rounds or something.
which
Mind you,
for what
that's going to just
what they call yeah for what they claim they're trying to forestall what they want to stop mass shootings. A semi-automatic 22 with high capacity, that's one of the more effective tools you could use in that situation. But That's available because that shows the lie. That proves the lie. They don't care about stopping mass shootings. They don't care about public safety. They only care about what threatens the government hegemony. That 22 long rifle doesn't threaten the government, so they don't care. Do whatever you want to
Yeah.
do. At the end of the day, it just has nothing to do with the safety of the people. Anyway. Oh yeah, Patrick says. So is are your old like Enfields? Are those? I guess those are capped at 5 rounds too, huh? Like
I'm
the
sorry.
old.
The Witcher capped at 5 rounds. My dogs are barking.
Yeah, like the old 303 British Enfields and stuff. The old
Oh,
bolt actions.
well, I guess they wouldn't be, or whatever they originally held. I don't know. I know we Dad's got one on the farm. Um, we've had that as long as I can remember. I don't know how many shells it takes. Uh, Probably it's only a 5 round. Oh yeah, because he had the magazine cut so that it would be smooth with the bottom of the stock. That's right. But
So
other than that, I have no idea.
you don't know if they make you do it or not. That would just
No.
be enraging if they made you guys modify those historic old rifles like that just to meet some arbitrary standard. You
I know there's other laws too. Like if you want to display a gun, a rifle, say in your living room or something, it has to have a lead plug in the end of the barrel. So it can't be taken off the wall and fired. Isn't that stupid?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so you take your beautiful rifle that you want to display to everybody and you make it useless so that
Mhm.
you can display it to.
Wow, that's insane. I mean, there's just people who they want to stamp out, uh, firearms ownership and gun culture. That's just what it boils down to.
Yep.
Uh,
They don't want you to defend yourself.
right from them. They don't. Yeah, they,
Yeah.
they want you dependent on them. That little girl in England who was trying to defend her sister with the hatchet. Uh, I haven't heard what the end result was, but they arrested that girl and charged her with defending herself. I don't know what they called it, but I think she was 14, and yeah, she got arrested and charged with defending herself from a sexual assault. So these. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark is saying it was Scotland. I was thinking it was England, but yeah,
Evil times.
these people are animals. Our overlords are just the most evil, disgusting, worthless, uh, useless. I just don't have words for how much I despise the people who rule us right now. Uh,
Well, I would just say that Satan is their daddy.
I think Satan is probably over there going, "What the hell is wrong with these people?" You know?
Even I'm. Oh, I'm sure he's laughing. He knows what's going on. Like as soon as you start bringing in statues of Baphomet, um, and satanic cults become more prevalent, and they start getting into doing good things like picking garbage along this certain part of the highway or making coloring books for kids that teach them about Satanism. Uh, yeah, it's gone way too far. Like we're at that. I think we're at that point now where it's like really the Charlie Kirk incident was really made me think of it was in the Bible where it says in those something like in those times they will kill you and think they're doing good or working for God or something to that effect.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I can't place
I
that.
can't remember. Yeah.
I bet someone in the chat will find it for us. But yeah, that I've heard that verse before.
And I kind of feel like we're almost there, you know.
It's getting. I mean, it. I will say this. I have become more optimistic than I've ever been in my lifetime over the last few years. Uh, there had my entire life had been one steady downward spiral with no reversal. Like it, even when we felt like maybe we'd won a small victory, it was just like slowing the degradation down just a little bit. And it feels like finally, for the first time in my 50 years of existence, we've actually reversed a few things, gone, you know, back uphill just a tiny little bit. Not enough, but just a tiny little bit.
What do you
And
what do
I
you
am
think the main cause for that is?
honestly, I think the main cause of it is that uh, bad, stupid, evil people don't have children and they don't raise families. Uh, and and the
That's definitely a
and the people who do, I wouldn't even say good people because that doesn't fit in with our theology. We don't believe in good people. We certainly don't believe we're good people. But people who are trying to do their best to aspire to the divine standard, we do have
Mhm.
children. And so now we've got two or three, or I think two generations now of where the religious people have produced the higher amount of the children of those generations, and so it's shifted those generations substantially to the right, and should make them move even more to the right, in the years ahead. So that's really why I have that's that's why I have hope. There was that old saying, demographic. We've shown that is not entirely true, but there is some truth to it. When you abort all your children, when you don't have children, when you raise them to cut off their genitals and pretend to be girls when they're like you that's just not that's suicidal. That just goes against all reason in the world, and you're never gonna have a successful culture that way. And those people are dying out. We had a I live in a little small town, like set up in the Appalachians. And our congressman here is a guy named Andrew Clyde, who uh, he made his money manufacturing and selling AR-15s, and his campaign posters have this big AR-15 on them. The AR-15 on the poster is bigger than his name. So you'd be like driving down the road and you would see an AR-15 on a yard sign, and oh, that's Andrew Clyde. But yeah, we literally elected the AR-15 to Congress here in this district. We're just Marjorie Taylor Greene is the congresswoman next to us, even though she's losing her brains a little bit, unfortunately. But that's just what this area is. We're just ruby red. And we had a No Kings protest on our way to church this morning. We passed the No Kings protest right in the middle of town. Uh, and there was only a couple dozen people, maybe at most 3 dozen, but it was striking. They were all old. They were all, oh, not all, but they were largely old white women and a few old white men. There were, maybe a few younger people here and there, but the vast majority of these people at this protest were old white people, and largely old white women. And
Which
uh,
would you say, generally speaking, coming out of the '60s, like that era?
yeah, yeah, that would be the stereotype. Yeah. Uh, and that's just a culture, a generation, a movement that uh, is finished. It's over. It's done. It's run its course. And obviously, we got to wait for them to die out. But there's just no dynamism there anymore. Uh, and maybe I'm just in my bubble. I mean, like I said, I live you're way out in the hinterlands in ruby red northeast Georgia. Yeah, so maybe I'm just in my bubble, but uh, I, it feels to me like there's been a change, and hopefully, that leads to more change, and we get this virtuous cycle back upwards because uh, it's
Well,
not the worst it's ever been. We were just talking about the French Revolution. Things were
mhm.
really, really, really bad during the French Revolution. Like they
Yeah, they
were,
could be.
they tried to convert the whole country to this re- religion of reason, and they
Yeah,
they came up with all these new like ceremonies and festivals, and they banned Christianity, and they were killing priests, and I mean all the stuff. I mean it's been really bad at other times in history, uh, and we're not there yet. What what I really get angry at people who are fatalistic. The thing you'll hear a lot around here is, oh, you know what, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and it's nothing's going to change till Jesus comes back. We just got to wait for Jesus to come back. And that just makes me want to slap people because, you
yeah,
know we are called to change the world around us. We're not called to hide and wait for Jesus to come and fix it all.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and if there's any sure way to make sure it all goes to hell in a basket as quickly as possible, it's for all of us to go hunker down in our basements and wait for Jesus to come fix it. Jesus will come fix it. Don't get me wrong, but that's not the strategy. I mean, that's the
Well, it's like that old joke. I don't know if you've heard it before, but it kind of goes like, there's a flood, and there's a guy sitting on his front porch as the waters rise. A boat comes by and says, "Hey, you need rescuing?" And he goes, "No, no, I'm waiting for God to help me, or I'm praying for a miracle from God." So the boat keeps on going, and the waters keep rising, and next thing you know, he's on his roof, and a boat comes by, and, "Do you need help?" "No, no, I'm waiting for Jesus. He's gonna come save me." And the next thing you know, he's standing on his tiptoes, and the water is getting up to his chest he's on his roof, and a helicopter comes and drops a rope ladder down. "Hey, jump on!" And he says, "No, no, I'm waiting for Jesus. He's gonna save me." The helicopter flies away, and he drowns. Well, he goes up to the pearly gates, and St. Peter's waiting for him there, and he says, "Well, I was waiting for God to come save me, and he never showed up." And Peter said to him, "Well, he sent you two boats and a helicopter."
yeah. That's a great story. Oh,
you
someone's
gotta be
message
you
is
gotta be
held for review. What did someone say that got them held for review? Okay, Need Another Gun says, I defend boomers for enthusiasm together for World War II Vietnam. The based on questions those boomers didn't pitchfork and enabled slate. Why I don't know why they held that comment back, Anita. I also think autocorrect maybe just did you a bunch of disservices in there, but I approve that message. I don't know why they held it. Uh, Anywho, yeah, no, you're exactly right. It was the old saying is, so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. It's just an excuse to not have to do anything. It's an excuse for laziness and weakness. Uh, I I I shouldn't admit this. When I was in ninth grade, I was not a great student growing up. And one of my teachers pulled me out in the hallway in ninth grade and said, "Why won't you just do this work? You're smart enough to do it. Why won't you just do it?" And I told her that I didn't have to do my schoolwork because Jesus was coming back. And here I am, 4 decades later, and Jesus isn't back. And it would have been nice if I had gone to school and gotten a little bit of an education. Uh, it's just a destructive ideology. And not that I don't. I mean, obviously I believe Jesus is coming back, but he's not coming back on my timeline. and in the meantime, I'm supposed to,
Yeah.
live in the land. And what did when when the Jewish people were in Babylon after the sack of Jerusalem and everything, they write back to, I believe it was Jeremiah, but it might have been Isaiah. I get a little confused sometimes. But yeah, they're holding another message for review. What the heck is going on? It's Anita again. Anita, I don't know what terror watch list you got your name on, brother, but they're after you tonight. Uh, I approve the message though. Uh, and the prophet writes back and says, "No, absolutely, you're there for the time being. Plant gardens, start businesses, marry, raise children. Live in the land and prosper because that's where God's put you for the time being." Uh, Mark really wants us to get into the Catholic stuff.
Okay.
He's like,
Well, let's see. Let's start by this. So, what is your belief on now in Catholic religion? We believe in faith and good works. What do you believe?
so actually, I'm very, very close to the cat. I'm far closer to the Catholic position on this. So this is the sola fide debate, which
Mhm.
in my uneducated, ignorant position is a little bit of a red herring. The differences between the two sides are not very far on this. Uh, sola fide is the idea of one of the five solas that came out of the Reformation, that we are saved by faith alone. Uh,
Mhm.
and the Catholics will argue against that and say, no, you're not saved by faith alone. That you also have to have some form of works to go along with that. Uh, but but the sola fide thing is kind of a gross simplification on both sides. It's a lot of Protestants who don't know what they actually believe. And of course, whenever you talk about Protestants, you're talking about a giant group that you really can't typify. But if you want to talk about, like, say Southern Baptists or Assemblies of God, or any of the big Protestant denominations we think about down here in America, at least, we separate salvation out from sanctification. Some people will call it, or justification. Uh, so, you there's the old book Pilgrim's Progress. I don't know if you've read it, but it's definitely worth reading if you haven't. And it's this thinly veiled allegory of a Christian's journey from salvation to death and entering into glory. Uh, and so for a lot of Protestants, salvation is a very specific one-time event. That's when you come to the foot of the cross. Pilgrim begins his progress at the foot of the cross, and that moment at the foot of the cross is by faith alone. Uh, but now you have the whole rest of your life. You have to go on the journey. Pilgrim goes on the journey, uh, and has to be faithful along the journey. And and people who start that journey with him fall out all along the way. So for me, the sola fide by faith alone debate is a little, like I said, a little bit of a red herring. There are Protestants who believe in, like, once saved, always saved. Uh, it, it, it's a minority. I don't know what size minority. So, my belief is obviously, and by the way, this is the Catholic belief too. This is not something we differ on. We come to the cross, we come to Christ by faith alone and nothing else. And the forgiveness, the initial redemption, that is all through just the free gift of Christ's sacrifice at the cross, and has nothing to do with anything we do.
Yeah.
It doesn't end there, though. You know, we can squander that gift if we don't. He says, "If you love me, you'll keep my commandments." We have to obey him. We have to live the life that he has called us into. Now, where we differ is in what actions are required, what actions are required for us to. So, if you want to say, so like the ones that I understand Catholics would say that the actions that are required for salvation or actions that are salvific would be baptism, communion, and mass attendance, if I remember correctly. And you may be able to add more if I'm forgetting some.
Well,
Uh,
I wouldn't say that they're considered actions. I would say those are considered sacraments that are necessary. But I would, I don't know. I get what you're saying. Like salvation does start at the foot of the cross. You're right in a sense because that's when we come to it. But really, salvation doesn't happen until you're dead. Um,
yes,
at least that's the way
100%.
we think. If you right, and if you are in a state of sin when you die, then you can't be saved. Um, I mean, in a state of mortal sin, as a Catholic would say it.
Patrick is bailing. He's
So,
not here for the sin talk. He's out.
well, in any case, the point is that, like you say, you can squander it, or you can what's the word I'm looking for? You can work with God's grace, right? He's going to send you the graces and the power, the things you need to make your way through life, to overcome these things all the time. These, whatever they are, temptations, if they're uh, actions or whatever that are bad that you're trying to overcome.
Mhm.
And I think that is just the action. That's the actionable part of the good works. I think is just that battle through life, that you're always trying to be better. Like you're not going to stay stagnant. You're not going to say I'm good enough now. You're not going to be that guy in the temple that says, oh, I give 10% of everything I've got, and I've got oxen, and I give all of this, and at least I'm not like that guy over there, the publican. And the publican is just, you know, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Yeah. So
And he goes home.
the passage that I always go to when it comes to this topic is, and I was going to look it up real quick to see if I could find it, because my Bible is I'm actually using my Bible as a camera right now. But it's faith without works is dead, and works without faith is meaningless. You can't have one without the other. You don't. If you have works without faith, it's worthless. It's meaningless. It means nothing. And if you have faith, you will have works. If you don't have works, you don't have faith. This is where we start getting a little close to Calvin, who I pretty much reject on almost everything he says. Sorry, that's like the pop understanding of Calvinism is what I should say. I shouldn't say Calvin. I don't really understand Calvin. Uh, uh, but one of these is James 2:14 through 26. I don't want to read the whole thing and bore everyone, but uh, I will read a few verses here. It says, "Someone will say, 'You have faith,'" and I don't know what version this is. It's the New King James version. "About your works, I will show you my faith by my works. Uh, do you not know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead?" So faith alone doesn't work for me. Faith without works is dead. You have to have some forms of work to validate your faith. And so on this topic, I'm closer to the Catholic view. I do think the the stereotype of the Protestant view is not accurate. I don't think there's very many Protestants who actually don't
Actually,
believe. Uh, you know, it does, like most problems in life. It comes down to one of vocabulary. Once you get your vocabulary straight, the problem kind of resolves itself. like I said, where we would disagree is what works is required of us. And I so Buck 99, how you doing, sir? Uh, I don't believe baptism is salvific on any level. It's not necessary. It's one step below required. I mean, it's so heavily implied that I don't know why you wouldn't do it, but it's not necessary for salvation. And so, like I would point to the cross, and we've got the thief on the cross, who Christ says, because of your faith, this day or not. I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, so give me a little bit of leeway here.
Yeah, I get
But
what you're saying. Yeah,
you'll be with me this day in paradise. And that guy didn't get
yeah.
baptized. He had his
No,
conversion right there as he was dying. So I
and
would look
that's
at something
something
like, I'm
I
sorry.
would consider that a form of baptism. Like baptism can be by water, baptism can be by blood too. So a martyr, anybody that's a martyr, even if they're not baptized, so to speak, and have died for the name or for the sake of Jesus, can be saved without being
So,
specifically baptized by water.
so every example
Um,
we have of baptism there's a baptism by the water and there's baptism by spirit, and usually the
and
baptism of the spirit, the examples we have, follows after the baptism by water. So that would be the examples we have in Scripture. Uh, hey, Buddy Bear was here, and Buddy Bear is an actual little bit of an armchair theologian. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get him involved in this conversation. Uh, Anywho, so yeah, that's where we would start, and that's like I would oppose infant baptism because that's a work without faith. That infant doesn't have any faith in that, and that work's not an expression of his faith. Uh, so that's why I don't think infant baptism is any big deal. If you want to baptize the kid, feel free. It doesn't affect anything, but it just doesn't affect anything. Uh, so that's another area where you would, that's the flip side of this. Yes, your faith has to have works, but your works have to flow from faith. And so, like, the baptism of an infant doesn't have any faith that work flows from. uh, there there is an interesting passage that doesn't isn't dealing with baptism. It's actually dealing with marriage, and it says that if a believer is married to an unbeliever, and the unbeliever agrees to stay married to the believer and live with them in peace, the believer should stay married to the unbeliever, because the believer sanctifies the unbelieving spouse and the children. It's a really, really interesting verse. I don't know what to do with it, uh, but it has some implications down this route. Where somehow this child is sanctified without a faith on their part. Uh, I struggle with the idea that the other spouse would be sanctified. Uh, I should look that up. Let me see if I can think about it real quick. You talk for a second.
okay. Yeah. Now I don't have any references to debate this one because I honestly can't think of anything about baptism right now. But let's say, how about communion? Um, I am when reading the Bible, like let's just start by using the Bible as our reference and nothing else. I'm very particular about the way things are said and how and like every little word, like especially the Gospels, and the Gospels are like the most important part to me. Every little word in there that is uttered by our Lord Jesus Christ is very, very important. And he says things in such a way, like, for example, he speaks in parables, and he'll let you know when he's speaking in parables because he creates a story arc with what do you call it? A lesson to it. But we also know when he speaks in a fashion that is like, I mean this right now, because he says something like amen, amen, or truly, truly, whatever version of the Bible you're using. He will say that before something he really intends to be like, this is the literal word right now. And one of those is that, amen, amen, I say to you, if you do not eat my flesh and drink my blood, you cannot have part with me. You cannot be basically, you're not going to be in a state of sanctifying grace, and you can't enter into heaven if you don't eat and drink his blood and his flesh. And I think that's a long, over the course of the centuries, that of course has gotten watered down quite a bit to the point where it's just a memorial, Last Supper kind of thing. Um, when really it's just a reenactment of the sacrifice of the cross. And that that sacrament is, to us, is really important. Like, I believe that with my heart. If he said that I have to eat his flesh and drink his blood, then I have to eat his flesh and drink his blood. And if that comes through bread and wine, through the order of Melchizedek, then yeah, I'll do that and I'll believe that, because I do think that it does make a difference. I'm no saint, that's for sure. I mean, I've done a lot of dumb things and I still do. Um, but that's why I go back, and every time that I do, and I can keep myself in that state, the longer I do, the more peace I get. So, or maybe even more enlightenment sometimes, if you can call it that. Like, I'll find myself thinking about little things, little details in the Bible, and like, what does that mean exactly? You know, and these little things build on each other until it's really grows into an interesting world, a neat world that we really need to be connected to, this whole world, spiritual world. Um,
Yeah, I want to be a little careful on this topic because I know how important this is to not just Catholics but Anglicans and Orthodox and some other folks. And I have no desire to pull out the baseball bat and start wailing away on the Eucharist. Uh, I have a transubstantiation doesn't insult me. I don't think it's correct, but I also don't think it's like some big problem. If that's what someone thinks happens, then that doesn't bother me. I will say
mhm.
this: uh, we're we're specifically forbidden from drinking blood. Uh, so that if the wine literally turned into a physical blood, I I would have to fall back and come up with some explanations, because to me that would be a contradiction of scripture, because that's what comes out of the Council of Jerusalem. This is a valid ecumenical council. I would say the only valid ecumenical council, but obviously that's something else to talk about. And they say specifically coming out of that, and this is Peter, this is James, and this is Paul, that we're not to consume blood or even animals with the blood in it. So that would be my big objection to transubstantiation. However, I like I said, I don't think that description of it, that understanding of it, violates anything in any way. Where I do object, and would be a principled stand I take with any church. So, like, my father's ordained in the Anglican Church. Uh, I will take communion from my father, but not in his role as an Anglican. I believe he's I can't remember, reader or deacon or whatever. He can serve communion for them. I will not take communion from any group that claims to control it. Anyone who tells me that their communion is the only valid communion and I have to go to them for communion, I will reject that communion prima facie. Because and I don't want to. I mean, we can do sola scriptura, but I hate to go there, right away. Not only do we not see that model in scripture that anyone controls it, I would say that goes directly against the first Passover. You remember, communion is a Passover feast for the Gentile, uh, and 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 Catholics and Orthodox and stuff, they'll talk about typology a lot. Well, communion is definitely a type of the past. I mean, like undeniably, communion, the Eucharist, whatever you want to call it, is a type of the Passover feast. I mean, it was instituted on the night of
Mhm.
Passover, right? Uh,
Absolutely. Yep.
uh, so yeah, we would definitely want to go look at the first Passover uh, to see how that played out. And the first Passovers, they were commanded, and by the way, they were commanded to do this for all time in all your dwellings throughout all time. Uh, and this is before Sinai. I actually, well, I don't want to get there. This is how I keep Passover. Uh, is you were to kill the Passover lamb at your house in you know with, and everyone was to do it themselves at their house and prepare it in their house and consume it in their house. Uh, Now that gets altered a little bit after Sinai for Israelites who live in Israel. And it says, so he tells them, when you come to your inheritance in the land flowing with milk and honey, you'll no longer do this the Passover inside your gates. You'll do it in the place wherein I choose to put my name, which is universally accepted to be the temple in Jerusalem, or the tabernacle prior to the building of the temple. Uh,
Silo.
yeah. So for me, when someone says only I can give you communion, I instantly reject that claim. Uh, uh, and that's what Hebrews tells us. We are all now priests in the order of Melchizedek. Uh, uh, I don't have to go to any other person for any of my spiritual needs. I can go. It doesn't mean I can't or shouldn't, or there wouldn't be great benefit in doing so. I don't have to. So communion, and the other thing about communion for me is we're not given a command at how often to do it, and we're not even really given a huge amount of instructions about the right way to do it. Uh, you know, Based off of what I see Paul say, and it could be as simple as what Christ did, or it could be an entire meal. You know, the communion could actually be a meal, or it could be the minimal uh, ceremony that Christ did with the disciples in the upper room. Uh, so that would be where we would disagree on communion, and I don't even think really communion would be an accurate description for you to use for what you believe about it. I think you do kind of have to go with Eucharist uh, to get the totality of
Yeah, Eucharist. Yeah, exactly. Um, I would say, well, again, going back to our Jesus' own words, Amen, Amen. I say to you, if you don't drink my blood or eat my flesh.
Mhm,
Um, Now remember, I mean, Jesus Christ is the second person in the Holy Trinity. He is the Word of God, and therefore he is also the speaker. Uh, he's the speaker in the Old Testament as well.
mhm,
Whenever God speaks, it is a second person. So this is all very important. And I don't think, like, I believe that the rules or the Mosaic law of Passover and whatnot was only for the Israelites, not for anybody else. It was for those people only. And their time came to an end largely during in the period of time when there was the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. And the kingdom of Israel completely disappeared. It dissipated into probably what's now Palestine, I guess. And therefore, there was only two tribes left: the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Levi. Um,
tribe of Manasseh. So there's actually portions of 4 tribes that are left in the southern kingdom of Judah after the 10 northern tribes get taken away.
Yeah, and so
But
I
it's
would,
it's
and I
it's
would,
largely Judah. Uh,
and there's a lot of imagery, that kind of supports that too, I believe. For example, when Christ finally died on the cross, and he raised his voice and in a loud voice said, what did he say again?
it is finished.
It is finished. No, he said that part quietly, but he said something loud before that, and the veil in the temple was rent in half.
Mhm.
This is important because the temple veil is what separated the people from the place where they actually had the
Yeah, the holy of
Ark of the
holies.
Covenant.
Yeah, the
Yeah, the
inner.
whole, which kind of symbolizes that end of that Old Testament or Old Covenant and a beginning of a new one. So I don't know, like in my point of view, I don't think I would necessarily go by Mosaic law because it's kind of, it served its purpose, but it's kind of done now.
But
And I would
you
be
would
hard.
you would you would probably concede that it is a type. That if you're going to look at typologies, that we can look at this early Passover and see that communion is a type of the Passover. Uh,
100%, yeah.
and so you could definitely go, all scripture is given to us for instruction, is all profitable for instruction. We can
Mhm.
definitely look at this first institution of what becomes communion and look at that for principles and guidelines that could apply to this later practice of communion. Uh, yeah, you're not a New Testament only believer.
No, I mean, the Old Testament has its role. I mean, there's so much in there that's like a build up to what's to come,
Mhm,
prefigurations, and like my favorite book in the Old Testament is Judges
mhm,
because every character that appears in that book, every chapter has its own, or not every chapter. There's like a series of them. There's like Samson and um, Gideon and a 300, the Aod. These are all types. They're forecasting Christ. Like Samson, for example, even though he was like kind of a male slut, he had his weaknesses, but he was a foreshadowing of Christ in a certain way, especially when chained to the pillars in in the Philistine temple and mocked before he pulled them down on top of the Philistines. It's kind of a symbol or a foreshadowing of Christ toppling over the kingdom of Satan, right? Like pulling everything down on top of it and crushing all the bad guys. Or I don't know if you do. Are you familiar with Judges at all?
yeah,
I love that book. To me, it's like the comic book part of the
yeah,
Bible.
a
It's
lot
all
of fun.
characters.
Ehud is one of my favorite characters in all of Scripture, and it's just because, like you said, it's a comic book adventure story. Yeah,
Yeah.
you really got to go digging to find the spiritual application of Ehud. But by God, it's a great story.
Oh yeah, he's the one who stuck the knife in the king's belly, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And then he said, "I've got a message for you from my lord," and then just shoves it right in there.
and he goes to shake. He's left-handed, so he shakes his. He gives his greeting with his right hand, and then pulls the sword out with his left hand and stabs the guy. And the guy's so fat that the sword goes all the way in, and the dirt comes out. It says, and uh, yeah, great story. And he jumps out the window and runs away. Uh, I don't know why that one's not a movie. So what you touched on, that would be another area where we disagree, is what I would call replacement theology. That says that this starts getting thick fast. Uh, I don't know how far I want to go into all this. Uh, because it is so highly speculative. It's probably not the right, but replacement theology says that God has transferred all of His promises and covenants with Israel over to the modern Christendom. Just uh, uh, 10 Tigers should have. Hey, 10 Tigers. Yeah, they're all at the No Kings rally. And I would reject that pretty strongly. God tells Abraham and David that his promises to them will not won't go away. Uh, and there's some pretty powerful prophecies about Israel and the restoration of Israel that seem to me to be that haven't been fulfilled yet and seem to be specific to Israel. And the apostles definitely thought that, because that's why they kept asking Christ, hey, at this time, will you restore Israel? Are you going to restore Israel? Uh, and so they were under the impression that those uh, prophecies hadn't been fulfilled yet, and there was still a restoration for Israel. And the other problem is that there's still a an unfulfilled covenant for Israel that hasn't come into effect yet. This would be the covenant in Jeremiah 31:31 that gets referenced again in Hebrews 8, where it says, I will write my words on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. Uh, this is a covenant that hasn't come into fulfillment yet, because it says specifically inside that promise that they will no longer have to teach God's laws to their neighbors, because everyone will know them intrinsically. So we know that hasn't happened yet. So we know that covenant that God promised Israel through, I believe, Isaiah. No, I'm sorry, Jeremiah. I just said Jeremiah, jackass. That hasn't come into effect yet. So I would have a very hard time writing Israel out of the story yet and inserting Gentile converts into the story. Uh, our covenant is provisional at this point. Uh, here's something that I don't understand, and I can't explain, so I don't have this answer, but it relates to kind of what we're talking about here. You know, Christ, like we were just talking about, his sacrifice and his crucifixion and death and burial all happened around Passover.
Mhm.
And we say that was for the remission of sins, for the forgiveness of sins. Here's the problem: the Passover wasn't about forgiveness for sins. Uh,
No.
the people's sins were forgiven at the Day of Atonement, which is another uh, uh, Jewish or Mosaic. I don't know what the right word, because it's not a festival; it's a day of mourning. But it's another day where there's this big Sabbath, and you've probably heard about the scapegoat, where the high priest puts his hands on the goat, and the goat's taken outside the camp, and it takes the sins of the people outside the camp.
Mhm.
So that's the feast. I'm just gonna call it feast, just so I have something to call it. It's not a feast, but that's the feast where the sins get forgiven. The Passover was a prophecy of uh, 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 being freed. So I don't understand, and I'm saying that I don't understand this. I don't understand why Christ's crucifixion and sacrifice happened on the Passover, when it was for the remission for sins, when the sacrifice that was supposed to prophesy forgiveness for sins was on a completely different day. And the only way I can reconcile it is to say that feast, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur is what it's called in Hebrew, hasn't been fulfilled yet. When Christ said that that he didn't come to abolish the law, but to fulfill the law, and that not one jot or tittle will pass away until it's been fulfilled. I don't believe that was a one time fulfillment. Everything got fulfilled at once. It looks to me like it is an ongoing, incremental fulfillment. And there are things about our covenant as Gentiles that is not in place yet, and that is provisional, because Yom Kippur hasn't been fulfilled. Passover's been fulfilled. Pentecost has been fulfilled. That's first fruits, is what it's called uh, uh, in the Hebrew stuff. But there's three more feasts that haven't been fulfilled: the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and Sukkot, or the Festival of Booths. We still have three more to go. Uh, so our covenant, our new covenant, which, by the way, if you're and this is a hard part for me on my end with my sola scriptura stuff. The new covenant doesn't really get described in the New Testament. We're told that there is a new covenant. We're told that it's Christ, but we're not told necessarily this is exactly what you have to. It's not like the Mosaic covenant, where God says you must keep my
It's
commands. These are
specific.
my commands, and if you keep my commands, this is
Yeah.
that covenant is yada yada, point by point. You must do this, and then the covenant is I will do this. We don't necessarily get that uh, uh, explicit a definition of what our covenant is as Gentile followers of Jesus. Uh, so I really, really, really struggle with the idea. I shouldn't say struggle. I am very skeptical of the idea of replacement theology, where we just get to take Israel's promises and co-opt them for ourselves. I think we can look at those promises and see these are the types of things God is willing to do for his people, that these are the types of things that we could have a part of and could participate in. Uh, but I struggle with saying that we can just claim them and say they're ours and they're for us now. Uh, uh, that
Well,
would
there's a
that
lot of
would
stuff.
be that would be a claim that
Uh,
I would be skeptical of.
and I can see your point. It does seem that way, and I think you're kind of right about things kind of unfolding a bit at a time. However, I think that the laws that you're looking for are right there in the Gospels. Now, they're not clearly defined. You're right about that, but we do know that the death on the cross must have been the end because, or sorry, the fulfillment, because like we just said earlier, his last words, "It is finished." And it's more than just him saying that I'm done now. He's saying that my work is complete.
Can't
And
be, because we
well,
we
no,
still have sin and death.
we
You know.
do, but we got to remember that God transcends time. So that moment that he suffered is it's an eternal thing. Like he's doing this for all time, for sins in the past, for sins in the future. So for example, when we go to mass on Sunday, we believe that reenactment of the sacrifice on Calvary is happening again. It's not happening again, sorry. It's still happening. It's happening in an eternal moment. Um, Not to say that Christ is eternally suffering. I'm just saying that the time that he was on earth encompasses because he's God, it encompasses all of time. So I would say that when he said he's finished, he meant it. However, the part that's unfolding all the time, and I did catch this too, I think from the last live stream that you had where you were talking about ecumenical councils,
Mhm.
and their role really is not to invent new things, it's just to define things. So if Christ said, I don't know, pick an example of something. What does that mean? Let's unpack that so people can understand it. And that's what these ecumenical councils are about. It's about unpacking what's in the Gospels. Sometimes it happens over time because we might have had to have the ecumenical council of Nicaea in 400 and something to combat the Arian heresy. That's important because what were the Arians teaching? They were teaching that Jesus wasn't divine; he was like a super angel. And they almost won. Like that was spread so far in the Roman Empire that they could have just wiped out Christianity right there and then. But like a few learned men have to come together and say, no, look, he's not a super angel. He's divine. He's God. He's man. He has two natures. These things have to be clarified so people can understand them. And I think that's the part that's unfolding all the time that we have to kind of understand more as things go on. When something new comes up, I call the days that we're living in now the modern phase or the modern heresy of modernism. And this is everywhere. It's in the Catholic Church. It's everywhere. It's basically saying that divine truth or anything that we've been taught out of the deposit of the faith, which is what Jesus Christ left us. Um, I completely forgot what I was talking about. Where was I going again?
So
uh,
we were talking a little bit about ecumenical councils and what they're doing and unfolding.
oh,
Uh,
modernism.
yeah,
Modernism.
modernism.
So modernism is prevalent today, and it's everywhere. And it's basically the teaching that says that the faith has to keep up with the times. So if it's socially acceptable for homosexuality to exist, or for people to be homosexuals, then therefore the doctrine must change to accommodate. And that's why we're seeing people like Francis, um, Pope Francis, doing these weird things because modernism is now entrenched in the church. Uh,
Yeah, I was just listening
so,
to Pints with Aquinas today. I don't know if you listened to that podcast or not, uh, but it's a Catholic podcast, and a very very devout, sincere Catholic. The guy who does his name is Matt Frad, and
mhm.
I listen to it because he's a good podcaster. It's just an enjoyable podcast, and also I have defiance disorder, and I can't listen to people I agree with because they bore me. I can only listen to people I can have rage arguments with in my head. Uh,
Perfect.
but he was interviewing a guy in this most recent podcast, and this is a conservative believing Catholic. I mean, this is not a you know a skeptic or a you know a liberal or anything. This and they were sort of talking about some of the scandals in the church in recent years and some things that had some financial shenanigans and stuff. I don't hold that kind of I don't hold moral failings against. Yeah, I mean, this is just something where we're going to agree. Like the sex abuse scandal. I'm no one's Catholic. I have huge disagreements with Catholic theology, but the sex abuse scandal was the dumbest, not the dumbest thing, but the fakest thing ever. I think I read somewhere there's like a 140 there were like 140 people in a decade or something, or I don't remember what the exact numbers were. Meanwhile, 500,000 children a year get molested in the school system or whatever it is. It's something ridiculous. I mean, it's an insane amount of child molestation that happens in the school system, and we just all ignore it. So I'm not gonna try to like discredit the Catholic Church because of moral failings. I mean, it is the foundational principle of our faith that you all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and none is righteous, no, not none. Uh, the fact that there's shenanigans in the Catholic Church is just proof that it's a Christian church. I mean, uh,
Yeah, the devil's attacking it, so there must be something there.
uh,
But you know what? And there's something that's important to remember too, and I do come across this quite a bit with people is that they'll want to say that argument, like look at how much scandal there is in the church. And they're right. There can be at times, and maybe even more recently, quite a bit. But we always have to remember that there was always a Judas amongst the 12. So we know that there's always going to be a Judas in the church, no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, if one almost 10% of the apostles were bad, what's that going to leave for now? Now
One of
there's
the big dangers I do see in Catholic ecclesiology, with like the infallible teaching authority and whatnot, is that, and of course this isn't gonna you have a valid answer to this, and I'll give it for you even, but that that scandal is moving closer and closer and closer and closer to an end result, which appears to be some kind of accommodation with homosexual activity.
Mhm.
Uh, and when that happens, and I'm sorry, if that happens, I'm talking to a faithful Catholic, so I need to use language that is acceptable to both of us. If that
It
happens,
will happen.
uh, so if that happens, that that wrecks a lot of people's faith. People whose faith was in the Catholic Church and in the Catholic, you know, teachings about the Pope and the magisterium and infallibility. And does the claim, not the reality, because we all know the reality is that yes, sin is in all of us, and the fact that there's sin is not discrediting, but the claim that the church would be, and I shouldn't use that. This is something else we'll probably have to talk about, because I don't think that's an accurate word. The claim that the magisterium is going to be protected from error, and if the magisterium ends up not being protected from an error, does that wreck people's faith in the entire institution of Christianity? Uh, that that to me is the real danger. Not that there's failures inside the Catholic institutions. There's failures inside me. I mean, that doesn't change anything. But when you claim to have a divine protection for something, and if that appears, let's say it doesn't even really fail. Let's say a pope pulls some sort of Francis move and says something stupid off the cuff, but he
Mhm.
says, "Oh yeah, let's all be gay together," but he's not speaking in an ex cathedra capacity. And so he doesn't even meet the Catholic definition
Yeah. Yeah.
for infallibility, but he's still, he's wearing the pointy hat and he's got the red shoes on, and he says, you know, just something ridiculous. I'm gay, you're gay, let's all be gay. You know, what kind of damage can that do to, on one side, to people who suddenly now think they have permission to be gay, and on the other side, people who see the contradiction and don't understand. And I'm going to be as charitable as possible to the Catholic position here. Uh, don't understand even the Catholic claims about infallibility in the magisterium, uh, and get their faith wrecked. Because we had another. I'm sorry. I can't stop myself from using this line. Please forgive me. Because we had another Italian in a dress have a moral failing in public. Uh, I don't know if that was coherent or not, or if there's anything there you can even respond to.
Well, yeah, I can. I think it's one of those issues. I think you're right. I think it's gonna make people. It's gonna make them feel some sort of way, and they're gonna go one of two ways. They're gonna go and just dump everything. I just can't take this anymore. Or they're going to go somewhere that's more traditional than where they're at. And we've seen this happen. I should preface this by saying that I am a traditional Catholic, meaning that I still go to the Latin Mass. I don't, and I try and follow traditionally what we're taught. And this is kind of in contradiction to a council that came out in the 60s called Vatican II,
Mm.
where church theology really started to change, and it was done in such a way that it was really innocuous. But at that point is where people are starting to go, okay, I'm going back before that time. They're either dumping it or they're going back to that time, and it just boils down to, are people going to educate themselves about it, or are they just going to feel a certain way? Because there was a time when there was a thing called ultramontanism. I don't know if you've heard of that term before,
Uh,
but it basically
yeah, that's the mono episcopate or
kind of
the
like the
Pope.
Pope is
Yeah,
the final authority on everything,
yeah.
and that's not really a Catholic belief. Um, and I do believe Francis did a lot of damage when he said things like that. There, I can think of one example in particular where he was meeting with the Russian Orthodox patriarch, and he said something like ecumenism is a sin against, um, no, proselytism is a sin against ecumenism. Ecumenism is the belief that we're all going to, it doesn't matter if you're Hindu or if you're Christian or if you're
Yeah.
Muslim, we're all going to heaven one way. Proselytism, of course, is the action of going out and converting or baptizing as Christ commanded, baptize all nations. So basically, what the Pope is saying there is a contradiction, because it'd be the same thing as saying purity is a sin against masturbation. It makes no sense, right? He's trying to flip the script and make it seem like something that is internally good, like it makes you feel good. Let's all get together and let's all go to heaven together and hold hands,
Mhm.
is better than the actual truth Christ taught us. And and I think that's where people get hung up. Like they're gonna take what he says wholeheartedly, or they're gonna go, I'm out of here and I'm gonna find something different, or they're just gonna dump it altogether. So yeah, there's like tons of damage from that.
Yeah. So are you sympathetic to like SPX and all that stuff or
Yeah, I actually go to an SSPX church.
oh really? Yeah,
Yeah,
SSPX. Okay. So do you
sounds.
so do you what's that oh a set of a contism. Are you saying that or do you believe that Peter's throne is vacant at the moment or do you think the pope is valid or where are you at on all that?
I think the Pope is valid. I'm not a sedevacantist because to hold to hold that idea in your head is the same thing as thinking that you can see the entire picture of everything that's going on. Like you can't judge a pope. It's like trying to judge. Well, you're in the military, right? Trying to judge a superior officer's motives. Like you can't do that because you don't know. You're not in the know.
Mhm.
So I don't think anybody can really be a sedevacantist. And if they are, they're really in grave danger of separating themselves from actual truth.
Hmm, interesting. I'm surprised. Yeah, Mark on here is also at SSPX, so that's my understanding. Is this is kind of a smaller movement, but growing, or what's going on with that?
Well, yeah, it started in, I would say, 19 in the early 70s. I guess there was one
Yeah.
bishop that he wanted to preserve the traditional Latin Mass because the church after Vatican II was going to erase it completely and unveil this new modern Mass. So he ended up starting a seminary and just teaching the traditional ways. And in 1988, he was getting very old and he needed to consecrate some new bishops to carry on his work. And so he did consecrate four. And for that, he got was formally excommunicated for doing that because he did it out of disobedience. But the movement kept on going, and when Pope Benedict was in power, Benedict the 16th, he removed that excommunication. So basically, we're a traditional part of the church, and there's not only the SSPX, there's other groups that do the same thing too. So it's been around for, I guess, 50 years, 50 plus years now, and it is growing. And especially after COVID, we saw a lot of new people. In fact, we were in this tiny church for, I don't know, like 20 years. You know, it would hold 80 people, and we'd squeeze 120 in there somehow, and it stayed like that forever. And then all of a sudden, actually, it was Pope Francis. I think it's starting in about 2017 or 2018. He came out with a document called Traditionis Custodes, where he was trying to ban the Latin Mass again, and he ended up driving a bunch of people from the modern Mass over to us. So much so that we had to build a new church,
Mm.
and also COVID too, because the modern Mass shut down and we didn't, and we kept going anyways. No masks. We didn't follow any of the rules, and people just kept coming and coming and coming. And now we've built a new church. We've been in it 1 year, and we're already over full.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, there's something going on here,
that's
and
cool.
lots of kids, lots of families. Yeah. So
So Mark just said something that I wanted to sort of maybe address because he was it was a comment back what we were talking about earlier, and he said we've had bad popes before. I think he was responding to my question about what happens when the pope even appears to be in serious error and not protected from his teaching. Even if you want to argue around whether or not it was ex cathedra statement or not, but he says something that most people think is ex cathedra that is in error or appears to be in contradiction, and his response is, well, we've had bad popes before, it hasn't affected anything. What's different today, I would say, is that you don't have the period of time you used to have before people found out about all this stuff. Things used to be, it might be decades before you found out about a scandal. It might be decades before you heard about this one statement that was made off the cuff, in an airport in, Buenos Aires, on a jet lagged flight. And so they're like, you hear about something 10 years after the fact, and you're like, well, I mean, obviously nothing came of it. It's no big, it was. Now you hear about it as it happens, like as the Pope is in an airplane jet lagged saying something stupid, you're
yeah,
reading it basically as he finishes saying it. And so
right
there's
there
no
as you're.
period. There's no period of credit. You're not banking like all this credibility, and then every once in a while you hear, 5 years ago this happened, but there was no result. Now it can happen. You can respond, and the result can be right away, right then. So I think we're in a very, very, very different period where uh, these types of things can have a much bigger impact than they would have had. I mean, look, the Reformation happens, it comes along with the printing press.
Exactly.
The printing press brings the Reformation. What's going on right now with the internet and social media is another iteration of that. Uh, a vapor
Yeah,
says hi.
yeah,
So that's why I would say, like, this, to me, this is a danger. There is a danger in the claim of being protected from error. Uh, even if you assume Rome's claim that they are, that they've defined it so narrowly and carefully, and with such, to such a razor's edge margin that it's very hard for the vast majority of people to know what's an ex cathedra statement and what's not. There's statements from ecumenical councils that aren't considered ex cathedra and can be in error and be revised. Vatican II, my understanding, is not ex cathedra. That Vatican II is not
Yeah.
dogmatic. Uh,
Vatican II is not an ecumenical council.
uh, uh, you see, I don't understand. But why not? Because the Pope's there and all the bishops are there, and why
Well,
is
one of the
that
things
not
that
a council?
it is a council. It's not an ecumenical council. An ecumenical council would have to be defined as such before it started. And so, for example, Vatican I was an ecumenical council because before they sat, they said that there was going to be one. Vatican II was declared as a pastoral council, so not be pertaining with matters of faith or dogma. So it was more. I think it was presented like an ecumenical council, and a lot of people believe that it was, but I don't think it is. I've actually read them, and they even say right at the beginning of the document that it's pastoral. So,
Yeah, I was even reading
uh,
something recently from Benedict before he was Benedict, where he was all. I guess if you read it carefully, you could. He wasn't saying that it was an actual ecumenical council, but he was saying that it was speaking with the same authority as Nicaea and one other. I can't remember. He listed two of the big ones and said that if you rejected Nicaea and whatever the other one was, that if you rejected Vatican II, you would also have to then reject Nicaea. Uh,
I would use Vatican II as toilet paper all day long. Um, I don't believe what he said there because he's actually himself a product of Vatican II. He was one of the what do they call them? Petrus. They were special fathers that were called in. He was only a priest at the time, Father Ratzinger,
mhm.
that were called in for their input into the way this council should go. And these guys that came in were not dressed as priests; they were dressed as businessmen, and he was one of them. That was a very striking statement for him to do. Now he did kind of back off on that when he became pope. He tried to turn back the teaching a little bit or whatever. He came up with something called the hermeneutic of continuity, basically trying to tie tradition with Vatican II, which you can't really do. And the reason for that is because Vatican II has no definitions in it. It is completely 100% suggestive. It's telling people on one hand that they must do this, and then on the other hand that if they change their mind they can do this. Is actually a very early and sneaky method of introducing confusion into the church, I believe. Kind of like politicians do today when they do circular talking. Um, this happens a lot in Canada, where in Parliament, a member might ask the Prime Minister a direct question, and instead of him giving a definite answer, he just gives this long, circular, stupid. You've probably heard that before in politics, lots, right?
Yeah,
Well, that's what Vatican II was. It was just a bunch of double talk, and you have to actually read it and look at it. There's nothing defined in it. There's nothing that says you have to do anything or not do anything. It's all suggestive. It tries to bring together social justice. So that is where the initial part of social justice came from, was from those documents. That I'm talking about the kind of social justice, double
right.
quotes, social justice we see today, and also this idea that all religions are equal kind of came out of those documents. So we know, and because it wasn't declared an ecumenical council, it was declared a pastoral council. We don't have to believe it. Therefore, I choose not to, and and I do that based on my own research, not because somebody told me. It's just that simple, for as far as I'm concerned. Like the way I see papal infallibility, and I think a lot of people think papal infallibility is when the Pope says something, therefore it must be true. And they're not really educating themselves, because the Pope can say that the church, should be spending more time saving the environment. That's not a dogmatic statement. The only thing the Pope can do, like when in matters of infallibility, if you want to call it that, is there's like two conditions that he has to follow for this to actually be legit. And one is that it has to be a matter of faith and morals. So he can't speak on anything other than that infallibly. And the second condition is that he must only define things that already exist in the deposit of faith. He can't add things and he can't take things out. And I think if people understood that, they could see through whenever a pope was just talking out the side of his mouth, like uh, people need to educate themselves a bit more, like the Catholics I'm talking to. You need to educate yourselves more, Catholics. Um, just because a pope says it doesn't mean it's true. Like it's if a pope said 2 + 2 is 5, would you believe it? No, I wouldn't. It's not infallible, and we know that. That's evident. It's self-evident. So it's just a matter of thought on what he says, and then following those conditions. I mean, I think a pope has only ever spoken infallibly twice in history, so it's pretty rare.
Sorry, I just found a new button on here that does a green screen. That was pretty cool. I'm sorry. I'm going to play for just 1 second, Pete. Forgive me. See if that works.
There you go.
That's fantastic. That's my youngest son. That is great.
Oh, how old is he?
He's about 8 months.
Oh, wow. You got a really young. You got quite the spread for kids, don't you?
Yeah, my oldest is 20. Look at that boy. That's amazing. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll quit.
Okay.
I was trying to deal with a comment and I found this whole button I'd never saw before. Yeah, my oldest daughter is 27, and then that boy is about 8 months. So I have a pretty good spread. I'm pretty pleased with it. It's 16 total. Three
Wow.
stepdaughters, 13 biological children, but I don't like to make that distinction. The only reason I do is because people always end up asking, so I just get in front of it. Uh, but
Well, I've got 8, so
you got 8?
I got 8, but we
That's
can't
pretty
have any
good.
more. So that's
What's the
yeah.
age spread?
My oldest is 30, and my youngest is 9.
Oh, cool.
And the 9-year-old is kind of like the first 8, first 7 were kind of all together in one group, and then there's like a 10-year gap, and then the youngest one came, and
Hmm.
so yeah, we just have her left at home now.
Oh, that's cool.
But
Cool. And you got
yeah,
some grandchildren coming now, you said?
yeah, I've got one grandson, and I got 2 more grandkids coming on the way.
Oh, wow. You're
Yeah,
about to
so
start.
when I see you and I see all your kids, I think of Caleb. Uh, the was it Joshua and Caleb were the 2 spies that went into Canaan,
Hmm.
and they were the only 2 that were kind of faithful to God. There, the other 10 or whatever backed down, and so that's why they ended up in the desert for 40 years, because they didn't go when God said. And then after they were in the desert for 40 years, they went into the holy into their new land, conquered a bunch of it, and Caleb finally goes up to Joshua, who is now taken over from Moses, and he says to him, he's like, "I was 40 years old when we went into Canaan, and now I'm 86 years old, and I feel like I'm still strong enough to conquer the land that God gave me. So would you let me do that now, please?" So Joshua says, "Yeah, you can take this mountain," or whatever it was, right? And him and his sons and his grandsons, they just went up there and they kicked everybody out and took
Hmm.
it over for themselves.
Yeah.
86 years old. Incredible.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's going
Yeah.
to be us, eh?
Hopefully. Hopefully. I've got 8 sons, and now I'm starting to get sons-in-laws, and now we've had some grandsons. So the everyone always quotes that quiverful verse wrong, where they say, children are like arrows in your quiver. That's not what it says. It says the children of your youth are like arrows in your quiver. Uh,
Ah,
uh, so like I'm I'm 50, uh, and I have sons who are in their 20s and teens, uh, and this youngest boy I just slash put up on the screen. He's probably not going to be an arrow in my quiver because by the time I could shoot that arrow, I'm probably not in the shape Caleb was in. But the sons of my youth, when I'm still in my strength and they're in their strength, and my daughters are are able to contribute and bring in sons-in-law and stuff. It's the children of your youth that are like arrows in your quiver. But
the ones that
Caleb
are bringing
obviously
you
still had. What's that?
the ones that are bringing you new children,
Well,
like they're at an age now where they can help you. You know.
the ones where you're still in your strength, and then they're in their strength.
Okay.
This is my assumption of the verse, but it does make the distinction that like arrows in your quiver, so are the children of your youth. It doesn't say that children are like arrows. It says the children of your youth are like arrows in the quiver. So
Gotcha.
uh, you gotta decide what that means for you, I reckon. But for me, it means here I am. I'm still strong. I have sons who are strong, and we're like multiplied. We're they're they're
You're a force.
they're tools or weapons that I could wield. At some point, I'm not going to be strong enough to wield a weapon anymore, and they won't be those quivers. So like that youngest boy I just flashed up there, when he's 18, I'll be 68, uh, and maybe I'll be like Caleb and still able to go take the hill and claim the land. But I would imagine I'll be slowing down a little bit at that point. Well, we'll see. Hopefully not. Uh,
Probably not. You know the reason why I subscribed to your channel in the first place was
oh, how was that?
you were digging a root cellar by hand, and I
Oh
was
yeah,
like, this guy, this is what I need to see is this kind of stuff.
yeah. I
And
I dug that root cellar by hand so well. I dug into the leach
sewer.
line for the septic tank.
Well, it was the thought that counts. I wasn't judging you on your landscaping abilities, but
Yeah, I had to fill that back in. It's still over there, actually. I didn't fill it all the way back in. Uh, I just filled it back up to where the sewage quit seeping out of it. But uh, yeah, that was. I'd finally got down to 11 feet. I had it 11 feet deep, and I had everything. I had the hole all roughed out. I had the hole as big as I needed the hole, and I was sitting down in there one day thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? How am I going to handle this? And I just noticed over at the side of the hole where it was, seeping out. And the smell, the color. We've all seen it, and I went, oh, no.
oops.
Uh,
Well, I thought, this guy's doing it with a shovel, and
yeah.
I'm like, this is the cat's meow, right?
You should see our
There's-
dirt too. Our dirt is something else. That
it's
this
pretty
red clay we
red.
have is like a brick. Uh, you're actually digging the whole thing with a pickaxe because the shovel actually won't break the dirt. You got to chop it up with the pickaxe and then shovel it out once you've chopped it up. It's insane. It holds the water real. Mark is remembering that too. He's laughing at me. It holds the water really well when we have our droughts in the summer. But man, you do not want to dig in this stuff. Uh, but anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I still don't have a root cellar. So after I filled that one back in, I started another one, Same thing. Started digging. Just realized it was going to be in the way of something else I wanted to do later, so I abandoned that one, and I've started digging a third one. And when I get it a little bit farther, I'll actually put it up on the channel at some point. But
Yeah,
I've
I can't wait to see that. It's good
yeah,
stuff. Good stuff. You can go anywhere and see somebody do that with a mini hoe, or like there's tons of channels out there that do that kind of stuff, but they rent equipment all the time. But
yeah,
it seems like this mentality today is that you need to have a bobcat or you can't do anything.
yeah,
And when I saw you dig shovel with the shovel, I was like, you know what? I got enough stuff around here that I can do work by hand too. Like I don't need to. Why is everybody around me telling me that you need equipment when you can just use your physical
yeah.
labor?
You got to do it in the afternoon. You got to have it right now. If you don't have it right now, it's not
Not
worth it.
worth it. Yeah.
And with all these boys I've got here, I don't have any excuse. I should have it done already because I should just be setting them to it when I go to work in the morning and coming home to a giant hole in the yard. But I'm
Yeah. Put those arrows to work.
yeah digging it under the house this time though. I'm basically going to make it a little bit of a basement, and I have to do some rearranging down there before I. Oh, Anita's doing a worm farm. I before I just set them loose down there with shovels and pickaxes. I got to pop some lines and I got to move some stuff around, and then we were bringing the dirt up through. I cut a hole in the floor, and we were bringing the dirt up through the floor. But then it just got to be too big of a mess, so I need to cut a door out of the underskirting. Uh,
Yeah.
but where I want the door, there's this thing in the way. I got it. It's always the thing you got to do the thing you got to do the thing you need to do. So I've kind of gotten bored with it and moved on to other things. But I need to get back to it because I've got a decent start. I got a decent start, and we should be able to get it knocked out. We didn't. The other thing is that we didn't do a big garden this year because that boy whose picture I put up when he was born in the early spring, he had some little issues. I don't know if you noticed. He's got Down syndrome, uh, and so he kind of took over our. We were just very focused on that for a while. Uh, we do home birth. We don't go to the hospital or anything, but obviously once we knew that we'd been blessed with a Down syndrome child, that then we went and got to the doctor and got him looked at and checked out. And he was having some problems gaining weight. He couldn't eat, and so he actually ended up in the hospital for a little while. Not long, and we got it figured out. And now you see him; he's as fat as a pig. But the spring and early summer was just a little stressful for us this year. So we didn't do a garden. So we didn't even really need to store anything. So I didn't need to work on the root stuff. All of that big, long, complicated story to tell you that I haven't worked on the root cellar in a while.
And it is such a blessing though to have a lot of kids, and
Yeah, it's
people
really
say
nice.
that, you know, but they don't know it unless they do it.
Yeah,
And going back to the boomer thing, like we kind of started talking about. Well, actually, you were mentioning about anti-family, kind of being the problem with. What was the question I asked you?
yeah.
Where did I?
Why was I optimistic? Why did I think things might be changing? And I just that's why. This.
Yeah, and that's a good because really it all starts with it being anti-family, right?
Mhm.
You think? I mean, I personally think that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. And there is a reason for that. Not that I don't think women are smart or have any rights or anything like that. It's just that um, I think that a vote should be something that's done at the family level, not something that divides families.
Mhm.
Because you could have like you can have a liberal wife or a conservative husband, and I think that's gonna affect the family. I
Yeah,
think a husband and wife should be on the same wavelength. So if they're both gonna vote, they should both be voting the same thing.
yeah.
But I think only one should have the vote. And I'm not even 100% saying I don't even know if I believe in universal suffrage anymore.
I
I
don't.
used to think it was a good thing.
Yeah. No,
So
I,
yeah, it's
if it was up to me, I've said this before on the channel, so I'm sorry if I'm boring people. But the only people who'd be allowed to vote in my republic are Christian men who've had a Christian son who's had a son. It would be Christian grandfathers down the male line. That would be the only people who voted in the Republic of Zactopia. Yeah.
I've heard that one before. That's Pastor Joe, isn't it? That said that
I'm not sure.
son.
I thought it was original me, but that's probably
I think it was.
arrogant. That sounds like something he
Yes.
might say. But yeah, I'm not okay with poll taxes and property requirements. I've known a lot of really stupid, evil, rich people.
Hmm.
Yes, I've known a lot of stupid, evil, educated people. Uh, yeah, to me, this is still an imperfect system, but it's the system that would exclude the most idiots and uh, allow the most worthwhile. And yes,
The
there'll be
stake.
very good men out there who were never able to have children. Yeah, I'm not saying. Uh, why are they, man? The damn auto censor is going nuts tonight. Like that, this comment that Mark's that just came up that 10% of American women 18 to 28 have OnlyFans accounts. It held that for review for some reason. Uh,
I can see it though.
yeah, well,
Oh, I guess I could.
I approved it, but it that made, and I don't have a moderator in the chat tonight. I normally have moderators, uh, but none of them showed up, so I had to approve it
That
myself.
that
But
doesn't surprise me. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than that. To
uh,
be honest.
and then Anita, a bunch of stuff Anita has been saying that didn't seem controversy at all has been having to be approved for some reason, held for review. I don't know why. Mhm. Anita and Mark are on some kind of list, I guess. Oh, Anita likes purple peas. Are you talking about pink-eyed purple hole peas, Anita? Because people down south love their pink-eyed purple hole peas. Oh, that's all they talk about. You selling any of them pink-eyed purple holes this year? What's the other one they like a lot? Butter beans. They'll buy butter beans by the pound. Uh, and what's a butter bean, you ask?
Yeah,
It's just a lima bean.
a lima bean. Okay.
We just call it a butter bean.
Well, we can't grow it up here, so not up here where I am.
Really, you can't grow beans? Won't grow up there?
Well, we can grow string beans,
You could
but
you
not.
could grow these too because they'll grow anywhere a string bean will grow. Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You could grow the pink eyed purple hole too, probably. You just wouldn't have the growing season that we get. Uh, Mark's saying that so many young men he knows don't want to get married. I wonder how much that is true. I don't know. Like
I
I
think
would,
there's like a segment of people that are called what they call themselves MGTOW
yeah.
that kind of
Okay.
are going like that. Yeah.
There's a lot of homosexuality in that movement. Uh,
Is that right?
yeah, oh yeah. MGTOW's got a lot of closeted homos in it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What? Okay, so look at
I
this.
try not to.
Look at this message that's about to come through from Anita. They flagged this message and made me approve it. What is wrong with this message?
She's just talking about food.
Yeah. And look at here's this one. Oh, this is just funny. My OnlyFans account barely buys a can of Copenhagen a month. Why was that flagged for review? I mean, this is ridiculous. I've never seen this before. Uh, they've done something different with the chat anyway. I haven't noticed this. Uh, they got these little crowns with the numbers next to them. I've never seen that before. So maybe this is just some uh, glitch that they're going to get worked out. But yeah, I've had
Might
the
that might be it. Maybe it's. I notice now on YouTube, a lot of people are having to change words.
yeah,
Like they can't say the word, the R word anymore. They have to say grape instead
yeah.
of,
Or they can't say
for
porn.
some
They can't
reason.
say sex. It's a, so I
Yeah,
wouldn't. I wouldn't. I wouldn't make that compromise. If I was people, I would just say, "Screw you and your algorithm."
just say what you got to say.
Yeah, suppress my views. You do it anyway. Why would I try to? Um, but like even in like the ads and stuff, I've seen anti-porn ads where it's an advertisement for an app to help you quit porn, and they can't say porn. They have to say the p word. It's like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
corn or something. Download
Oh
our new
well.
corn.
What's that?
Download. They want you to download their new corn blocker,
Your corn
which
blocker.
sounds uncomfortable.
Have you? I don't know if you. Well, down here, uh, a lot of the big porn sites have been shut down. Uh, the big video platforms, the Pornhub and the RedTube and X Hamster, and there was a whole big network of these things. But they've passed these age verification laws in the difference of the states. Alabama, I know, did. Texas did. A few other states passed these age verification laws, and the biggest porn providers have had to shut down because they can't comply with it. Uh, so it's again, it's another thing to be
Grateful for.
optimistic about. I mean, there's
Yes.
just there's good things happening. Uh,
Now, when you say they've been banned, does that mean that they're banned in like certain states or all like?
right.
Because in
So
Canada, there's nothing like that.
right. So you you, our system down here is just for, I'm sure you know this, but just for everyone else, all 50 states get to pass their own, have a large degree of leeway in the laws they can pass.
Mhm.
So some of the states have passed laws where pornographic sites have to verify the age of anyone using the site. Uh,
Oh, okay. So,
and so these sites can't do can't comply with the different rules for 50 different states. And so they've just shut down the streaming services uh, for the whole regions. I don't know if it's nationwide or not, but I know, like, so I live in Georgia, and Alabama passed a law, and I think South Carolina may have too. And so they just did a blanket thing on the whole, like, southeast, and you can't access any of those porn sites uh, in the southeast anymore. And it's the big ones, the like I said, the ones you'd always hear about uh, in the news and stuff. So in the past, the liberals have used that system against us. So that's why California keeps passing its own emissions laws, because the auto manufacturers will comply with the stricter laws in California, so they're not trying to comply with 50 different sets of regulations. So it's worked against us in the past, but right now it's working to our benefit. That the more conservative states are passing these more restrictive laws. and it's actually forcing some change. Uh, so again, something that's deeply, deeply encouraging going on right now.
Yeah, hopefully they take a big financial hit and
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I
Because
hope it crushes them.
at the end of the day, if you take the money out of it, it'll wither. It'll never go away, but well, you could wither it. I am coming to the point where I think we need to tax internet usage or just shut the whole damn thing off at 7:30 at night. Uh, we should start treating the internet like a bar. Nothing good happens on the internet after 10:30 or whatever. Because
I've always been of the mind that the only way things are truly going to get better is if the internet goes away completely. Um,
yeah,
I kind of feel that way. Don't know if that's necessarily true, but I really think a lot of evil comes through that medium because there's so much out there. There's so much information,
yeah,
and and I think it makes things worse. It muddies the waters for so many things, like trying to find what's true. Um,
yeah.
I
One of
couldn't
those
I couldn't
countries,
imagine.
I think, is one of the Nordic countries just passed the law banning people under 16 off of social media, which is one of the better laws that anyone's proposed in a long time. Uh, I would I would probably say let's ban everyone under 18 off of social media. You can't be trusted, to buy cigarettes. You can't be trusted with the internet. The internet's far more
Yeah,
addictive and uh, deleterious to your health than cigarettes are. Uh,
definitely.
yeah, Mark says that.
I have,
I'm thankful for growing up without it. He's talking about the internet. I graduated high school in 1995, which was the year the internet debuted. So I
yeah,
didn't. What's that?
I was 1990, so when I graduated, and I remember the internet, like you say, 1995 when it
Uh,
first came in, and I thought, "What as good is this going to be for?"
yeah.
What good
I
is this? I thought.
I I I didn't encounter it until like 99 or something, 98, 99 before I ever, ran into it. And I had the same reaction, like, well, what the hell is this for? Uh, I have a phone book. I don't, well, what?
Yeah,
And then here we are 30 years later, and you can't imagine living without it. Same thing with cell phones, though. When cell phones started getting ubiquitous, I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Why would someone want to carry a phone in their pocket? And now I sleep with mine because I'm an idiot, because I want to check things as I lay down, and oh, let me just check this one last thing, and I'm sleeping with a phone in the bed. And I was the guy who was like, these are so stupid. No one is ever going to. I remember when the first guy in our town got a cell phone. It was the local, you know, like real estate developer, big wig. Every town's got this guy. Uh, and it was back when you could listen to him on the scanner. If you had a police scanner, you could listen to the cell phone towers. And
yeah,
everyone has police scanners out here, Well, they used to. I don't know. It used to be a thing, though. Everyone always had the police scanner on in the background, and you'd hear. Uh, it was a big scandal one time. The sheriff decided he was going to scramble the scanner channels so that people couldn't listen in, and people went nuts. He had to undo it within like listening to this guy ride around town with his cell phone, talking to his girlfriend. However long later.
and
And I mean, there's some
uh,
there's some good stuff that comes from it. I mean, here we are. you know, internationally about important topics, and there's some good that comes from it.
Sure, it's a
Yeah.
tool and it has a right to be used in the rightful kind of way,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh, I
nice to uh, sit down with my wife, and we like to watch the Rockford Files, uh, you know, some kind of shows or whatever from like the 70s or 80s, and
yeah.
kind of you sit there and you watch the actors talking on a wall phone or taking
Hmm.
notes with a pen, you know, or
Yeah.
the tape recorder answering machine, and cars that didn't talk to you. You just got in and drove them.
Yeah. All right. 10 Tigers says that butter beans are not the same as the beans. Okay, fair enough. 10 Tigers. But beans are better. Give you that. And then
Wouldn't
Mark,
know.
I missed some comments. I'm sorry. I'm going to catch up the chat real quick. Mark,
Oh,
following up on young men not wanting to get married, he just says that they've been so disappointed in women. 10 Tigers has been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson lately, and he says Carl Jung would say we are in the grip of the archetype of the terrible mother. That Mark says the crown shows who is going to heaven, and he has a crown with the number one beside it, so that's good for him. Oh, Landon showed up. Shalom, Landon. Uh, Anita says used to be Google Hangout video. Oh, Anita says $100 silver. Do you stack any silver, Pete?
little bit. I haven't bought any this year because the prices are kind of high now.
Oh, they're insane. 50. We hit $54 this last week. It pulled back to $52. Uh, yeah, Dean is saying the Dixie butter bean. Oh, butter peas is the small lima. Everyone. Yeah, so we have you know field peas, and the beans too. Mark says porn is the great evil in this country. I agree. I God, I missed a bunch of comments. I'm sorry, everybody. I jokingly have stated years ago one would have to drive distances to obtain a Playboy magazine. I wonder if they even print Playboy magazines anymore. And I mean, if the only porn we could get was driving to get a Playboy, I would consider that a great, great improvement. I mean, that
That's
how good if we
yeah.
could get back to that place. Of course, that the Playboy was a step on the to where we're at. So I wouldn't want to.
It would be a huge
I don't
help
know.
though
I
because the urge to look at porn, if that's a thing for the person, would really be it would be a drag if you had to drive all the way to town to go to the store to buy a magazine when you could, you're used to having a phone. Like nobody would do it anymore. I think it's
yeah.
too convenient now, and if it becomes less convenient, I think people would really stop doing it because it would just be
Yeah, I think it would cut way back on it because
yeah,
like
yeah.
you just didn't have access to it when I was a kid, and if you did get your hands on a magazine, you hoarded it, and you lived in constant fear that your mother was going to find it. Uh,
And the only time I ever had one when I was a kid was one that I found on the playground
mhm.
and stuffed in my coat, took home. But
Yeah, it's
like
amazing how that it still managed to turn up. I just had
right.
when I was in like eighth grade, someone just randomly gave me three Playboys or something. They weren't even Playboys, but it was something like that. I was at school and they just had them in their locker and they just gave them to me. Like I didn't go looking for them. I didn't. I mean, obviously, I was happy to have them, but uh, it showed up. So
It's how the devil.
what's that?
Uh, that's how the devil works. He wants to get you hooked on something. He's gonna find a way to get it to you.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. I've
But if we
I've
take
never
away those,
I've never
sorry, go ahead.
struggled with drugs. I've never struggled with drugs or alcohol. I've gone through periods in my life where drank too much, but it wasn't, you know, the the monkey that like an alcoholic would have. But man, I love me some naked women. I have always had to. I have always
Yeah,
had to try to manage that in my life, uh, and
I think that's
with
common in
varying
most.
degrees of success. Yeah, yeah, it
It's
is.
nothing.
I think yeah, a lot of men struggle with it.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm just skipping a bunch of comments. I'm sorry, guy. Oh, Anita likes Perry Mason. God, here's another message that gets held for review.
How about
Some things
Matlock?
that Mark says he would get bored with porn. Yeah, no, I've gone through periods in my life where I was definitely, clinical. I had a clinical level of problem with it that I had to really fight with.
Put your foot on it, crush it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's hard, and it's never going to go away. It's like one of those things that once
right.
you've seen it once, it stays in your mind, and you have to struggle with
Yes.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
those images, and the more you subject yourself to those images, the worse it gets, and possibly it gets boring after a while. Maybe that's why people
W-
get more deviant. Like
Yeah, I
it doesn't.
yeah, 100%. I know in my life it definitely progressed from like a Playboy style thing would I would say, I just want to see bare breast. I don't show me anything else. And then I found myself at a place where, that's
Yeah,
just bare breast. Why aren't you showing me anything else? It definitely
it's
progressed.
more.
And yeah, you have to recognize at some point that if you do not stop, it will continue.
Yeah.
Uh, and you'll end up in a very, very dark place. I actually don't have. I'm not a puritanical teetotaler on it. Uh, I'm a little more permissive than some, uh, but it just can't be this unrestricted pipeline where you can get anything any time of the day. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like marijuana. I've never smoked marijuana. I don't like marijuana. I don't want people to smoke marijuana. But if someone smokes marijuana, I'm not like, oh God, okay, you're going to hell. You're this terrible drug addict. Uh, I've known men who they say, well, because I like naked women, I can't be a leader in my church, or I can't be a leader in my home, or I'm not going to read my children the Bible because I struggle with this major sin. And I don't know, like, no, okay, you consume porn, okay, fine, you're like 75% to 90% of every other man. That's not an excuse. you know this practice doesn't eliminate you from grace. You still have to do all the other things to be a good man, and you also have to try to get rid of. So I'm not like, I don't think porn is adultery or any of this stuff, but it's something that needs to be an increasingly minimizing part of your life. You're and you probably can't never get exposed to it because, like, oh no, there you
Oh,
go.
we're back
We both grew up in an era without the internet. We both got exposed to porn without even going to look for
without
it.
the
Like you
internet.
said, you found a magazine on the
School. Yeah.
someone handed me magazines that I didn't ask for and couldn't have gotten for myself. Uh, but it's like anything. You got to fight it. You can't give in. You got to continually minimize it in your life, and that can be a hard thing to do.
And I would say, like with regards to your comment on saying that you couldn't be a leader in your church or something because of that, it really, who isn't without sin? And what did Jesus say? Who is without sin cast the first stone? Um, sure, maybe the leader in the church has never had that struggle, but maybe he's had a struggle with keeping his hand out of the collection plate, or maybe he's got a struggle with maybe he's an alcoholic. You don't know. Everybody's got some kind of weakness, and that shouldn't preclude them from being involved in anything, I wouldn't think. But what do I know? I'm just a hillbilly.
Yeah, yeah. I had to get pretty radical in my life with the porn, where I had to really re-examine some beliefs I held, and and start over on some stuff, because I lost jobs because of it. I would do it at work. Uh, I would not leave work because I had internet at work and not at home, and I would stay at my job literally 24 hours straight, uh, so that I could watch porn, look at porn. Uh, it was really, really, really destructive. Uh, I don't know why they're holding these messages back. Anita says, I drink more than Luther's wife, Kate. And for some reason, they held that for review. I don't know why. Uh, but so, yeah, I was in a bad, bad way at one point. And that, it fed into my divorce. And there was a lot of really negative consequences. So you would think I would hate it and despise it. And this is really difficult. One of the things I had to do was I had to stop that binge purge cycle, where, oh, I hate myself so much because I did this, and then I do it again, and I hate myself. What the joke is, I'm unhappy because I eat, and I eat because I'm unhappy, and I had to stop that cycle, uh, and I had to just say, this was, I don't want to. I mean, if we want to get back into the Catholic Protestant stuff, this might be a segue into it. I don't know if we want to do it at this late stage though, because Jesus, 12:30 already. Uh, but I had to say, okay, Zach, clearly you are not going to, because this was decades, of my life. I've been struggling for 10, 15 years and not making any progress, and things, like I said, had gotten really, really, really bad. And at one point, I had to say, okay, you get to do this. You consume porn. Here's what you can't do. You can't pay for it. You can't uh, uh, let it affect work and that sort of stuff. And I was already divorced at that point. And when I married Mariah, I told her straight up, hey, this is something I struggle with. This is not something I'm going to hide from you. It's not going to become a shame thing. Uh, uh, this gotta be careful. So I had to break the shame, but you still had to be, not because it wasn't shameful or because it wasn't bad, but because I was hiding it. It became more important to hide it than it became to deal with it, or we were trying to hide it and deal. Anyway, so when we got married, I said, look, I'm not hiding this. This is something that I struggle with in my life. It's probably going to always be an issue. If you can't if you can't handle it, you're going to have to probably not marry me, because and she said, well, I mean, I don't love it, but I understand where you're coming from. And so I started setting guardrails on it, and then you know then went and picked. No, I shouldn't say picked. Identified the things that were like clearly 100%. These things are outside the bounds of anything you can justify as a follower of Christ, and I just started moving the fence post in closer and closer and closer and closer. And like I said, it's never going to not be an issue. It's always going to be something that is in the background. But man, I've come so far from where I was, you know. Uh, and maybe some of that's just aging, and your testosterone
Drops down a
starts
bit.
tapering off,
You
and
know,
yeah, you get a little bit of perspective. Uh,
I have to say, we're a lot more similar than you think.
yeah,
And in fact, I was just at confession tonight, and my priest said to me that whenever the temptation first starts to show up in your head is when you start to pray. I never even really considered it before. That's when you should start to pray. And that's when you'll get the grace to like get up and do something else. Like all of a sudden you'll just get up and go out and work on your car instead of thinking about it.
mhm.
So yeah, no, I mean like we've have the same struggles, man.
Yeah, I think most men do.
I think
I
so.
know. But go ahead. I talked way too much.
Oh, that's fine. It's good. We're just kind of sharing experiences, and um, I don't know. I think it's good. It's good for me to learn from your perspective. I'm no theologian, and I'm not a apologist, and by any means. To me, this is an exercise in like how well do I know myself, and what can I learn from somebody else's perspective? Because there's always value in that. It doesn't matter if you're not Catholic. I can see where you're coming from, and it's good that we're kind of the same that way. And it's like, there's no, I mean, there's shame, but like you said, you got to get past that. Like, you can't be down on yourself because you committed a sin. You have to stay uplifted somehow, because you'll go down that crushing cycle of depression, um, and that will be more destructive than the actual porn itself, I think. But
Yeah,
if you can just like get up from it, say, Lord, I'm sorry, make your act of contrition, whatever you do, and I'm going to carry on. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to move forward, and then you just let it go. You know, God will deal with it at that point, and you just keep trying and going. So, yeah, I think we're agreeing too much. We need to fight more.
oh well, I mean, we never talked about Mary. I mean, if we want to fight, we can just go straight for the.
Go straight for the fruit, the low hanging fruit. Hey?
uh, actually,
Well,
no. What's that?
I'm under no, I'm under no illusion that I'm gonna make conversions by my speech. I just like to talk. That's all. I like to have
Yeah,
these conversations.
yeah. Oh, I love them. I love talking about this type of stuff. Uh, I wouldn't say uh, I've been a part of a couple of conversions, not many, but a couple. Uh, Pastor Fox was really instrumental in rolling me over into the Tory keeping. So it can be done.
Mhm.
Uh, you can change hearts and minds. Although, in my opinion, they were probably hearts and minds that were already on their way to being changed, and they just chose you as a vehicle to
As
affect
a
it, to finish it. Actually, though, it is 12:40, and I am running out of steam. So I think I'm going to be
Wow,
rude and thank you for an excellent conversation.
yeah, it was
I've enjoyed
fun. We
getting
should.
to know you. We'll have to do it again
Yeah,
when we can fight more. Uh,
yeah. We'll
and
get out the boxing gloves, and theological boxing gloves, and duke it out.
anything you want to get out there before we wrap it up?
um. Well, since you're a prepping channel, sure. I've got two rules for preppers. This is my own concoction, and I think it's the only thing you need to know. And it costs nothing to do. Number one, live beneath your means. And number two, use every part of the buffalo.
Yeah, those are good ones. Live beneath your means is one of the rules for life. Uh,
Yeah,
Unfortunately, one I learned way too late. But and then yeah, use every part of the buffalo. Don't be wasteful. Uh, all right, sir. I'm going to let you have the last word because it was a good one, and
okay,
I look
well,
forward to doing this again. Now that we know how to do it, uh, we can do this more often.
sure,
Ben,
yeah, well,
we
you've got my messenger there, so whenever you want to, just let me know. And yeah, it was fun. I'm grateful that you let me come on your show. So
it was a good conversation.
God bless
All
you, and have
righty,
a good evening.
men. We appreciate you. Thank you so much, Mark, Anita. Appreciate you guys hanging out for so long. We will see you guys soon.